Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and this is Shelby Reads. Part of the time you're gonna get really cute dressed up me, my audio corrupted for my intro. The rest of the time you're gonna get onesie me because it's laundry day and I'm tired. If you're new to my channel, my name is Shelby. This is Shelby Reads and I am a femme lesbian who has been with my wonderful butch wife for almost 13 years now, almost married for 6. Yay us, it's coming around the corner. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to hear more about sapphic books, which is what we talk about pretty much all the time. So can we just have a little bit of applause for the dress? Isn't it like so cute? Also, the necklace is from my wife for my birthday. Got a little like tooth on it. It's like a little star. Scooch you right back on in. Fix the lighting. Yeah, the necklace is like really cute. My wife gave me a budget for my birthday at my favorite oddities store, which is local. If you live in New Hampshire, it's called Black Rose Antiques and Oddities, and it is in, I think it's technically in Loudon. I don't know. I go there all the time. Probably gonna go there again this week. My wife is wonderful. I ended up choosing like mystery boxes with the budget, so I got like a bunch of cute stuff, and this necklace was in there. I was really excited. I like their mystery boxes. They're nice. It's gonna be my wife's birthday next week. I have to try and figure out what I'm gonna do for her, because like, I mean, I'm gonna make her a cake. Tess, if you're watching this, shh, you didn't hear that. But she knows that, but I'm gonna do something else too. I don't know what yet. The weird thing about my wife and I is that we are born literally 2 weeks exactly apart. And the other really weird thing, my wife might hate if I tell this on the internet, I don't care. We were definitely conceived around the same time, like one town over, because her parents honeymooned in the town that was next to where my parents were living. Crazy, weird, but obviously destiny for us to be together. I said what I said. Today we're going to be talking about Tangled Encounters by Madison Nicole. It is an adult romance book and it is in the series Circus. It is the first book. The second book is also out, but the rest of them aren't out yet. The series is a series of standalones that are interconnected. If you want me to keep reading these, spam me in the comments. We don't usually do too much regular romance, but we're having a good time this time. Ozzy is looking for a new circus to join. She quit her old one with a dramatic flourish because they were a bunch of a-holes and is in desperate need of finding another place to perform. Circus seems like the perfect fit. They need a juggler and Ozzy is the best. Except the teeny tiny issue that one of the performers, Jess, seems to actually hate her. It's not like Ozzy meant to be an awkward mess when they first met, but she was a little starstruck. How could you not be when you just watched the absolute best aerial hoop performance you've ever seen, with the most beautiful woman alive bewitching you with her musicality and athleticism? Jess is in desperate need of a new duo partner. Unfortunately, the only person who can keep up with her on the aerial hoop is the newest member of Circus, Ozzy. There's nothing inherently wrong with her. It's just that every time they have accidentally touched, Ozzy acts like she burned her hand on Jess's skin. It's rude and uncalled for. Why wasn't there anyone else? To make matters worse, in a moment of desperation, Jess told her ex that she and Ozzy were dating, and now things are even weirder. Fake dating your duo partner wasn't really in the cards for either of them, but slowly fake dating turns into something more that neither one of them can no longer ignore. But old wounds and pesky exes seem to keep getting in their way no matter how hard the two of them try to keep those things at bay. You can't run away from your past forever. Will they be able to overcome their own demons or simply destroy their relationship in the process? It's up to the two of them to find out. We're going to read the author disclaimer quickly. I would read the trigger warnings on Storygraph, but the only thing was sexual content. I don't feel like that encapsulates it, but I feel like this tells you enough. Before you read, this book contains adult themes such as sex work, explicit sex scenes, misogyny, homophobia, kink, slut shaming, and more. This book is intended for mature audiences and reader discretion is advised. If you have any concerns about the content of this book, feel free to email the author, Madison Nicole, at, there's the email, Your Mental Health Matters. I do appreciate that. Before we get into this little rant review, I have to have my disclaimers as always. Number one, this review is not intended for the author, friends of the author, stands of this author's work. This review specifically is for readers. Although honestly, I don't think the author would mind much being here for this one because I actually kind of like this book. Number two, this review will contain all of the spoilers, so if you are interested in reading this at a later date, I would suggest you click off this video and maybe put it in your watch later. Number three, I'm not shit talking sapphic books when I talk about these books. We deserve to have mediocre sapphic books and amazing sapphic books, but I am allowed to talk about them just like the straight people could get on here and talk about the books they liked or didn't like. Number four, this book is written by an indie author. Even if I don't like a book, you still might really enjoy it. I did like this one though, and so there will be no indie recommendation for today. today, but I would just like to say we should still support indie authors anyways. With that being said, let's begin. Prologue. We start several months ago with our main character Ozzy, or two main characters, Ozzy and Jess, as the synopsis said. Jesus, we're already off to a great start. Because I decided to dress up, I have to look like an idiot. Ozzy broke up with her boyfriend Sean last night. He tried to get her to have a threesome with another woman. I didn't really know why he thought he could handle two women at once, when the reality was he could barely handle one. Not to mention we had never talked about adding someone else into our very new relationship, if you could even call it that. I felt like we were still in the beginning stages of defining what we were. Our relationship label was like a slightly upgraded form of a situationship, honestly. She slaughtered him with the like, I don't know why he thinks he can handle two women comment. 10 out of 10. We love ragging on men in this channel. Not all lesbians hate men, but I do. It was a pretty easy split for her because she liked Sean, but not that much. They worked and trained at the same circus together. They weren't that serious, but she was comfortable with him. He ruined it, and he also tried to claim that she wasn't queer because she didn't want to have this threesome. In his mind, no threesome equals you're not queer. I feel like this is just a horrifying bi stereotype, but you know. She hoped that they could still work together at the circus in peace, but she goes to work and everyone whips around to stare at her. She doesn't get it because she's nice and much more enjoyable than Sean, and she's more talented. One thing you can't say about any of these women are that they're super humble, but I really don't care because I feel like if you're really good at something, you should say it. We learned that she's primarily a juggler, like she juggles objects, but she can hold her own in other areas and other disciplines of circus stuff as well. You might be wondering, Shelby, you were just doing collateral damage. Did you do this on purpose? No. Also, I don't think there are any clowns in this book. I'm gonna have to go through as we're going through to remember, but I don't think there's a singular clown, which I'm honestly fine with because I have to do collateral damage in 2 parts. She thinks about how she doesn't know why she even bothered with him because the sex was good, but it wasn't that good. She thinks that it was really obviously an error in judgment dating him in the first place. Brittany, her coworker, comes over with her hands in fists. Brittany is not Ozzy's favorite person. Ozzy likes to try and do her best to mind her own business. Brittany is obviously not that type of person. Ozzy also doesn't really like the gossipy cliques that are in this specific circus. She thinks it's the antithesis of what circus stuff should be about, which it should be about community, creating art, and being inclusive. Instead, she thinks this one is more like a country club, but it is her best option right now because it has the best access to training facilities, coaches, and paid opportunities compared to other circuses. But Brittany has beef with Ozzy. Brittany says Sean told all of them about her blatant disrespect. Ozzy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're just not seeing each other anymore, because he was being a dick. And he said some pretty hurtful things about her identity. And if anyone should be upset, it should be her. Brittany says, how dare you try and manipulate this situation and take no accountability. Ozzy cannot figure out what's going on. Sean is now here and he is like, you can stop playing innocent now. You went off the rails and you need to apologize. Ozzy says, you can't be serious. Why are you lying? And Ozzy is starting to like tear up a little bit. He says that he told them how she makes money and that she's like a whore, referencing her OnlyFans. She thinks to herself that she should have never told him about that. She trusted him, but he's clearly manipulative. She asks why he's doing this. Brittany says, you sell naked pictures and that means that people deserve to know the truth, or whatever misogynistic BS is coming out of her face hole. Ozzy says that she's allowed to do whatever she wants with her own body, and that is fucking true, my guy. Sean says, you work with kids. And it's like, she works at a circus. She says, you're the only one telling people, and she's now starting to like cry, which is fair. I would hate to have any kind of confrontation like this at work. I do find this slightly ridiculous though, because you would think out of all the professions that there are, that this one would care the least. Like, I don't think you have to meet that many requirements to be in the circus or like to be a carny or whatever. Sean says that they all voted and that she's fired, and that he also talked to Leslie, who's in charge of the circus. She's his aunt, so not super helpful. Ozzy feels like very betrayed, but she's also kind of blaming herself a little bit in her head, thinking about the mistakes that were made that led to this. Ozzy clarifies, hey, are you getting me fired for personal things that I told you in private when we were in a romantic relationship? No one in the crowd is empathizing with her at all, which is very sad. I looked around at the faces surrounding me. No one, not a single person seemed to empathize with me. They all saw me as this weird slutty villain that Sean painted me out to be, even though he was more than happy to date me until 12 hours ago. Men do be doing this shit. Like, Brittany says that she's unfit to coach and perform, and they don't want to be associated with her and her OnlyFans. Ozzy just kind of gives up, which is kind of fair in this situation. Sean says, we better not see you around here again because you're banned. Ozzy says, fine, I don't want to be associated with you guys anyway. I quit.
Get out. Count, got you. No, you didn't. Well, yes, I did. I pushed you out and you're fired. So, double burn on you. I got out on my own. Well, then, you're rehired. Get back in the car. No, I'm not falling for that. No, just sit down on the edge of the seat. No, I'm walking away now.
She storms out. She makes it to her car and starts crying. This is relatable. Page break. She gets home and tells her roommate Trevor that they need to move now. Trevor asks what's going on. He asks if this is about the breakup, and he mentions that she didn't even like Sean that much. She says that she quit, but technically she was kicked out of the company. She explains the situation to him. He says it's 2024. What the hell is wrong with him? My brother in Christ. Think about who got elected in 2024 in the United States. And then fucking get back to me. Misogyny has always been on the plate. I don't know what we're talking about. He comforts her and says that their lease is up in a few months. He has connections all over, allegedly, so they can look other places. He wants them to start another adventure together. Just pick a place and like a few new circus companies to browse, and they'll start over together. She says, do you really want to do that? He says that they can get booked anywhere. They're talented, they have drive, they're great instructors as well. She tells him that she loves him. He says he will tell the leasing office that they won't renew, and he asks her to research places she might want to try. Then they can narrow it down, see what's available. She says, okay, let's do it. She researches the night away. After a few weeks, they finally decide on a place. She finds somewhere outside that she can practice juggling still and keep her strength up. Her other side hustles, including OnlyFans, keep her financially steady through this. But she really misses performing. She really thinks that things could work out at this new circus called Circus Callisto. The director of this company is Logan, who is a trapeze artist. They seem really busy and like they have a lot of performers. They're just missing a juggler, it seems. They move without knowing if they're gonna take any of these jobs, which is a little crazy to me. I feel like we're flying off the handle here. Maybe they're much more financially well off than I am, but every time I start to have enough savings to survive, I have to replace my car, which is definitely gonna have to happen this month, I'm pretty sure. Going into the shop to tell me what's wrong with it this week, and then we will make an executive decision. Wish me luck, everybody. This will be posted after I go though, so She is ready for a new chapter. She hopes that the new chapter will provide her with some community. She thinks that lack of community is kind of why she ended up with Sean, but she will no longer settle for mediocrity. They're finishing packing and they hop in the car. We learn that they've been BFFs for years, her and Trevor, and they've been roommates for quite a while, and they're each other's family. The chapter ends with them plugging in Trevor's phone for their road trip playlist and going on their way. Chapter 1, Ozzy. That's right, this is dual POV. Don't necessarily mind it this time. Ozzy has dragged Trevor to watch several performances. She's taken him to a bunch that vary in like levels of professionalism and skill. They're now going to the one that she is auditioning for, which is the Cirque Callisto, and they're going to the Aerial Cabaret show. Ozzy loves pre-show stuff. She's checking out the vibes. Trevor says it's giving Christina Aguilera burlesque vibes. I have not seen that movie. I cannot comment. All I know about it is that one scene with like wagon wheel Watusi. Trevor offers to get them more drinks and he goes to do this. She and Trevor have settled into a new rented house, but she wants a circus space to call home. She is anxious to get back out there and her creativity is dying out here. And honestly, I get that too, because after art school, it was like really hard for me to make stuff without like a dedicated space and area for it and dedicated time. It can be really hard. She's looking at the pamphlet and she's excited that the performers' pronouns are also included. She takes this as a good sign, and I would too. Being in a homophobic work environment is the worst. Trevor comes back with the drinks. We get some info about his outfit, but I do not care, to be honest. I kind of hate most of the time when outfits are brought up in books and it doesn't necessarily matter. The show encourages audience members to like participate in this sexy aerial cabaret. I don't know what that entails. I'm scared for the performers, but it does sound like a good place for her to work. The MC comes out. She's a black woman with like leather and chains on. She belts out some Broadway star hits. She's high kicking, shimmying on the stage, finishes with a jump split on the ground. She's apparently a fucking star and everyone loves her. Ozzy is loving every minute of it. Next is a white woman. There is a deep fluttering in Ozzy's belly as she watches her. I don't know about that, Chief. Also, who wants to bet this is the love interest? Yeah. The love interest is Jess. Let's cut this shit, right? Is doing a routine with the hoop in the air. Ozzy thinks about how Ariel isn't inherently sexual, but tonight it feels carnal. Ozzy just cannot focus. And Ozzy feels like she's looking right into her soul. She wonders if she's made anyone feel this way when she was performing. How was it possible to inspire such a visceral reaction in someone? Swallowing, I tried my best not to objectify her like some dumb man. I was literally no better than a horny 14-year-old boy by the way my body was reacting, and to focus instead on her creativity and talent. Performance artists worked hard to have their skill and strength recognized. Circus could be sexy and strong. I knew that firsthand. So I just want to point out that your body having like a reaction to somebody is not the same as objectifying someone. It's not. It's just not. They're very different things. She thinks that she really needs to get laid and puts it on her to-do list. The audience loves Jess's act. When she's done, Ozzy wonders who she was. Trevor makes fun of her, saying she drooled all over that performance. She tries to say that it was the beautiful display of athleticism. He's not buying it because he's right. We blow right through the rest of the performances because that girl, Jess, was obviously the love interest. Ozzy thinks that she does have a little crush, but that it's harmless.
Sure, Jan.
The show's over before they know it, and she only like half watched the rest of the show. Trevor says he can see why she would want to join. It's a diverse cast and she'll fit right in. They go out to the lobby and the performers are there and they're greeting people, taking photos. Ozzy tries to find that hoop artist, but she briefly wonders if that's weird. I scanned the lobby for the hoop artist and came up short. Why was I looking for her? I didn't even know her, and how weird would it be for me to go up to her and be like, hey, I was obsessed with your act and you're really fucking hot. Are you into women and are you single? That would be a guarantee that I would never work with this company and that they would call me a weirdo. Yeah, that would be weird of you, yeah. I will say I'm consistently torn over work romances though, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel like they're either wildly professionally inappropriate or icky to me. And I'm just like, you work at a circus, so at least I know you're doing what you say you're gonna do, but like if it's an office romance, are you actually working then? Like how much are you getting paid to do nothing? Tell me. Someone behind Ozzy says her name. It is Logan, the director. She's in a pink feather boa and lingerie. Logan is very glad she could make it and asks how she liked the show. Ozzy thanks her for the tickets and compliments the first hoop artist, Jess. Logan tells Ozzy her name is Jess. Logan says you should take her class sometime, and Logan will send her the schedule. Logan says they're always looking for people to diversify their acts. Ozzy knows that she's good at the hoops too, but she like compares herself to Jess and she thinks to herself she would love to take that hoop class. Logan calls Jess over. She is so beautiful, petite, long dark brown hair. She has like teal pieces framing her face. Ozzy wants to run her fingers through her hair. Get it together. Logan introduces them and says that Ozzy's juggling is phenomenal and that Ozzy also does some hoop stuff. Ozzy can feel like her face growing hot. This also seems to be happening a lot, and I'm kind of worried about the blood flow and circulation to her face. Jess shakes her hand and says it's nice to meet you. Can't wait to see you in the studio sometime. You know, very polite stuff to say. Ozzy compliments her, says that her whole piece was enthralling and she couldn't stop thinking about it like through the entire show. Ozzy is very worried about her hands being sweaty and wet though. She wipes off her hands on her leggings after they shake hands and just looks at her funny. Ozzy surmises that it was like wiping off her touch and that's why she was like weirded out. But before Ozzy can explain, they are interrupted and Logan and Jess are taken away. Trevor asks her what happened. He thought it was going pretty well. She explains that pretty women are her weakness and she has an instant crush, which is a little too close to insta love for me, but not quite, you know? I'm gonna let this one slide. I'm gonna let this one slide. Trevor says, let's go drink some of your embarrassment away and drags her to the bar. Ozzy hopes that Jess will forget about her being an asshat or that Jess didn't notice at all. I think that's wishful thinking. Chapter 2, Jess. Jess is bringing up to Logan that Ozzy wiped her hand after shaking her hand. She's worried that she's thinking about it too much, but it felt like really dramatic to her and she's taking off her stage makeup while they're talking. Logan says, hey, maybe she's weird about physical touch. Jess likes taking off her makeup and like winding down after performances. She's like having a good time taking that off and like the accessories and the hair and all that. One of the other circus people, Avon, asks who Ozzy is. Jess is amazed that Avon got off her glitter so fast. As a gay person, that's truly a talent I don't possess. But if my wife ever cheated, which she wouldn't because she's wonderful, but if she ever did, I would know that wasn't my glitter in a heartbeat. So who's really winning here? Logan explains who Ozzy is and mentions the juggling and mentions the lyra, which is the hoop thing, but Ozzy's not as good at it as Jess Jess, but still pretty good. Logan invited Ozzy to train with them to see if Ozzy wants to audition to work for them. Another coworker, Mila, says that Ozzy thinks that Jess has cooties, all teasingly. Jess thought Mila already left though. Her boyfriend, Mila's boyfriend Jake, was supposed to take her home, and Mila says he couldn't be here, a work thing. She asks them for a ride. Jess and Logan are super worried about Mila because Jake has been really flaky on her lately. Avon's gonna take her home though. Logan says that Ozzy seems great, if not a little grossed out by Jess's calloused hands, but everyone will meet her next week and they will all take a vote on if she can work with them. Logan is very interested though in asking Ozzy to join them. They move on to the topic of the show that's going on tomorrow, but Mila and Avon leave. Jess asks Logan if she thinks Mila is okay. Logan says no, but she's not ready to talk yet, and Jess says, I know. Logan tells her to not think too much about the whole Ozzy thing because it probably has nothing to do with her, and if she's a narcissist or a bigot, she's pretty much definitely gonna get offered a spot unless she's one of those things, you know? Jess says that she'll try her very best, and she thinks to herself that she's gonna try her absolute hardest to befriend Ozzy despite the poor first impression. They say goodbye, and then Jess drives home. Jess's eyes are really bothering her though because she had to have some kind of eye treatment done, but they're not so blurry that she can't drive home tonight. But another performer had to do her makeup for her because of the eye thing. It's not a problem for her work because she could do her hoop routines like with her eyes closed, but she can't do like hair and makeup without her eyesight. She wonders what was up with Ozzy and why she was being so weird, and she doesn't know why it's bothering her so much. She gets home and unloads her car, throws some laundry in the wash, runs a nice bath for herself. Then her phone buzzes and it's somebody named Genevieve. Why did I see? I was combining Guinevere and Genevieve. It's Genevieve, saying that she looked great tonight. Jess groans dramatically. She didn't see her and she didn't come up to her like Genevieve didn't. They had broken up a couple of months ago and now Genevieve is acting really weird. The breakup was fine, but Jess is worried about some lingering feelings on Genevieve's side of things. Jess texts back and says, thanks, I'm surprised you came. And Genevieve says, I'll still support you. You're a very talented artist and performer. If this isn't a lesbian breakup, I don't know what is. At this point when I was reading it, I didn't know if Jess was a lesbian. She is, but still, like, it's very much lesbian breakup territory. Instead of responding, Jess creeps on Ozzy's Instagram. She thinks that she's really fucking cool. My hair doing this, stop it. What happens when you try to moisturize your bangs? She's even really good at juggling sabers and swords. Jess gets a little bit distracted by her thick waist and strong thighs. She thinks that Ozzy needs a little bit of coaching for the hoop, but she has a solid foundation and good strength. Jess thinks that she looks a lot more friendly in these pictures. There are also some that are like more sexy and sultry. This makes Jess rhymes with corny. I don't know though why everything has to be insta lust or insta love. It just doesn't do this like enemies to lovers girly any justice, you know? And I normally love fake dating also because it's kind of all about getting to know each other in like a very odd scenario. But if you're already kind of into them immediately, I start to lose interest. I do. Jess thinks about taking out her vibrator while looking at photos of Ozzy. We are sprinting toward weird behavior. She was reaching for it when she gets another text from her ex. This kills her boner a little bit. She finds these like check-ins annoying and uncalled for, and she just ignores the message. She knows that sooner or later she's gonna have to tell Genevieve off, and she just puts her phone on do not disturb. She keeps watching like kind of sexy videos of Ozzy performing, and she grabs her vibrator and gets off to this person that she has only met once. 0 out of 10. This is like such weirdo behavior to me. What are you doing? Chapter 3, Ozzy. Logan is asking Ozzy if she's a trapeze bitch because Logan's thing is trapeze. They are in her class. It's the following week. The studio is like decked out and Logan like gives her a bear hug. Ozzy says it's not my main thing, but I can keep up. She is excited to take this class. Some other athletes are training right now. She sees Jess doing a silks class. Her crush is just as bad as it was before. Logan says that she's obsessed and she's great at it too, and Ozzy agrees that Jess is very good at silks. Logan introduces her to the other members. There's tons of diversity. Logan is the director and head trapeze coach. She's also the owner of this business, and they do a warm-up on the ground and then they move to the air. Ozzy keeps sneaking glances at Jess. Jess takes off her tank top at one point and Ozzy is losing it looking at her abs. She hopes that no one noticed her watching Jess, and she's kind of being obvious. Jess seems to be trying to like perfect something as Ozzy is watching her. It looks great from Ozzy's POV, but Jess clearly seems like a bit dissatisfied. The more I watched her, the greater the weird tingling sensation in between my thighs diverted me from the class I was supposed to be fully participating in. I nearly screamed at my genitals to calm the fuck down. Ma'am, this is a Wendy's. It's Ozzy's turn to do a demonstration. Ozzy is worried about fucking it up. She asks if it's for juggling and Logan says yes. I want to see some balls flying, if you know what I mean. I don't understand why people think sex jokes are the funniest thing on earth. I just don't get it. It's not for me. Ozzy loves it though. Logan is becoming one of her favorite people. She asks if they have juggling balls and they do not. Logan says they're gonna have to change that. And Ozzy says, no worries, I have some in my car. She turns to leave and bumps straight into Jess. They both grab onto each other in an effort not to fall over. Ozzy's thigh ends up between Jess's and her hands are on either side of her head. Like, I'm pretty sure they do fall. Their mouths are inches apart and Ozzy is horny about this. I kind of do love accidental touching like this where like people run into each other. I don't know why. I can't even lie to you though. I do kind of like it. Ozzy apologizes and Jess says that it's fine. Ozzy jumps off of her so aggressively that she nearly falls backwards. She can't figure out why she's so awkward with Jess. She offers Jess her hand to help her back up. Jess is looking at her funny but does take her hand. Ozzy's hand kind of lingers before dropping Jess's palm, but the sweaty hand problem is back and she wipes them on her pants like an idiot and Jess just looks annoyed and Ozzy realizes she fucked up again. She doesn't understand why her body is reacting this way. She says she's going to get her balls and Jess looks at her funny. And as Ozzy's leaving, she hopes that Jess has met more awkward people than her. I don't know. This is pretty awkward. She grabs her juggling bag, which has balls, rings, clubs, and a few random objects. Everyone is waiting for her when she gets back. She's feeling very nervous. She gives herself a pep talk, but Jess being there is definitely part of the nerves. And Ozzy sees her looking at her weird and is like, I totally get it. I've been acting like someone who doesn't even live on Earth. Logan introduces Ozzy to everyone before she starts, and then she's killing it. She's doing 5 balls, alternate between balls and rings, does some clubs, she adds fun flourishes, like she does like hip swishes, contact juggling, rolling things, which is like rolling things across your body. She does spins, she does cartwheels, she's killing it. And she takes a final bow and everyone thinks it was really cool, but Jess is hanging back a little bit. Ozzy thinks to herself, not that I noticed. She definitely noticed. I just remember though when I had such a huge crush on my wife, but I thought she was straight. I felt like this a lot, so it kind of brings me back. She was raised very Catholic, like Italian Catholic, and she told me she was straight, and so I just believed her, and we were hanging out all the time as friends, and I was getting like some serious feelings. It was a time. Mila introduces herself to Ozzy. Ozzy says hi and says some nice things about Mila's performance. She also says that she's seen Mila's parents' performances before. They apparently were circus performers who had like this huge cute love story. Mila says thank you. They'll be delighted to know people still talk about them. Ozzy is grateful that Mila isn't weirded out by bringing up the whole parents thing. We learn Mila is the head Silks coach and Ozzy's glad that the introduction went well. Another girl comes up and says juggling is really hard, but you make it look so easy. Ozzy makes conversation. This other girl is Avon, the one who brought Mila home the other night. Ozzy knows who did what in the shows, and she just proves that she really cares and pays attention, and I do really like that about her. Logan reintroduces her to Jess, who is just scowling at her. Ozzy tries to shift the conversation back to her skills, asking if they want to see her do some Lyra stuff. They all agree, but this feels extra serious because she needs to prove herself in front of the coaches, the company, and Jess. And obviously Logan owns the whole thing. Logan's explaining that she used to be Jess's Lyra partner, but the company needed more attention and now Jess is looking for a partner and she's just throwing it out there for Ozzy to think about. Ozzy says, I don't want to be presumptuous about you wanting to work with me, but I would be honored to be like your student and partner if you would have me. And she's shifting side to side. She's very anxious. Jess says, sure, let's see how this goes first. Ozzy puts on a song and starts going. Afterward, Logan, Mila, Avon, and Jess do like a huddle and start whispering in a little group. That's kind of rude, but whatever. After a little bit of Ozzy being very nervous, Jess says, if you want it, you're in. Ozzy says that she would really like that. They're going to send her details about rehearsals, upcoming shows, boring stuff like that. There is a big group hug. Ozzy thanks Jess, but Ozzy still gets the impression that Jess loathes her. Logan says that we have a gig next week if you want it, and Jess says welcome to Cirque Callisto very curtly, then just walks out of the space. Everyone else stays and asks Ozzy questions. Ozzy is still worried though about what's up with her body around Jess, and she thinks she's going to do her best to get Jess to like her. Chapter 4, Jess. They're in the dressing room. It's crowded. Everyone is running around getting makeup on except for Ozzy, who showed up ready to go, like full hair and glam makeup and everything. This annoys Jess a little bit because she's like so prepared. Jess opens her makeup bag and stuff spills out everywhere. Her vision is extra blurry, so it's hard to tell what's what. She tries to get Logan to help her with her makeup, but Logan is in the middle of her makeup. Logan just gives her a look in the mirror, and then she asks Ozzy to do it and says that Jess's eyeballs aren't working so well today. Jess tries to keep her face and body very neutral. She is still trying to figure Ozzy out in her own head, and they're on weird terms apparently, even though she is the one who masturbated to someone she barely knows. Jess thinks that it doesn't help that she just seems exceptionally nice and hot in a muscle mommy way. Go off, hit yourself to that muscle mommy ride, girl. I get it. Ozzy says sure, but it might not be like perfect. Jess explains that she has an eye condition that messes with her vision. She doesn't go into too many details. Ozzy asks her how she likes her makeup done. Jess thinks that Ozzy is being really nice about it and that there isn't any reason to be so snappy. Jess hands her a makeup brush and their fingertips touch. Jess thinks that she's gonna be weird about touching again, but Ozzy isn't. Jess then is like, oh, maybe she was just nervous when we met. Ozzy asks her to close her eyes, please, and her voice is doing something for Jess. Jess is finally figuring out that she's attracted to Ozzy.
Yeah, no shit, honey!
Ozzy is asking nice questions about what makeup brush to use, but Jess is too busy staring at Ozzy's makeup, and she looks at her purple lips and is like zoning out. Jess wonders what's like happening to her, but says, that's great. Ozzy keeps checking in and asking permission to do things. Jess is confused though because she was mad earlier and now she's horny. She wonders if it's because she's sex deprived. I love how everyone in these books always questions if it's that. I'm like, I don't think it can always be, guys. Ozzy says that she's almost done with the makeup. Jess goes to look at it, but she can't see details, so she turns to look to everybody else for validation, and they all love it. Jess finds it attractive that Ozzy is good at doing her makeup. Honestly, hell yeah. I wish my wife was slightly interested in doing makeup so she could do mine for me sometimes, but alas, I have the hottest butch alive. She just has no interest, and that's fine. She always compliments my makeup though, because she's hot. Hot like that. Jess thanks Ozzy. Ozzy says anytime. Ozzy puts everything back gently the way she found it. That is hot. I can't lie to you. Jess gets fixated on her strong hands, and I get it. But she reminds herself that those strong hands seemed intent on wiping off her touch. Girl, just ask. Some bitches have autism. Just ask. Jess grabs her hand and it feels electric, but she lets go quickly. And Jess thinks I was irritated at her for doing the same thing. What am I doing? And Jess can't figure out what's going on between them. She thinks that they're both just a little socially awkward and anxious. She says that it's like the most logical explanation. Jess says, good luck out there, and Ozzy says you too before like going off to get some water. Logan makes fun of her for saying good luck. Avon asks Jess if she needs help with her hair, and Jess says she does. Mila says, I don't know what's happening with you two right there, but it was hot. Jess says nothing is happening here. No one believes her. Not even her. And honestly, like, I also do think it's weird for your friend to be like, slash coworker, to be like, that was hot. I'm like, why are you looking at us so hard? Don't. Ugh. Ozzy eventually comes back and starts warming up and changing into her costume. Jess has a hard time not staring at the powerful muscles and the tattoos. Girl, same. This is me, but for my wife, or Vi from Arcane. I am who I am, okay? The party starts up. The theme is neon glam western, and it is for a high-profile client in the city. I can't really understand what neon glam western would look like unless it's like Chapel Roan. Chapel Roan, my beloved. By the way, I was fans of her before all of you. I started listening to her when Naked in Manhattan came out. That's my one brag. Jess spots Ozzy juggling. Logan asks her why she's glaring again. She says she's not. Logan says that Jess likes Ozzy. Jess denies this, saying, I don't know anything about her. Avon comes back in laughing, but then her normal face comes on immediately because it was an act. She tells them that she's sick of men trying to grab her. Logan asks who because there's a zero tolerance policy, and she says she'll light their goddamned ass on fire. Hell yeah. Avon says she handled it. She told them to fuck off unless they wanted her to sue. They left her alone after that, but Logan still doesn't look all that happy about it. Mila comes out back too. Logan asks if Ozzy's the only one out there, and Avon says she's fine, she's killing it. Logan says they have to get out there now, probably to protect her from perverts. Jess says if you smile any harder, you will break your cheekbones. Logan says fuck you. I love her. She runs out with Avon and Mila, and Jess still needs a minute. Jess's ex texted again. Jess is trying to find a polite way to say fuck off without it being like a huge thing though, you know, which I can relate to. She doesn't love confrontation. I get it. Her ex can't seem to let go even though she did some really questionable things, including like, so Jess is monogamous and her ex did things that technically weren't cheating, but she felt betrayed by it. And I can vibe with that, honestly. It's important to trust the person you're with. Also, I'm hyper monogamous. That is like a hard boundary for me. And one thing that like made me uncomfortable when my wife and I started dating is she still paid for one of her friends' food, who I'm pretty convinced was into her. It seemed, I'm just saying. And so like my wife just doesn't pay for people's food now, and I think that's beautiful. Look, a little bit of jealousy can be healthy. That's all I'm saying. It's okay to have boundaries. She doesn't know why her ex is still trying after months though. She thinks about Ozzy's fingertips brushing against her skin, and girl, I love the pining actually. Like keep it up, more pining. Jess feels neutral about her at this point, but that's not the point. She decides to just not think about it, and then she goes back into the crowd to do her job. Chapter 5, Ozzy. Ozzy has showed up to Jess's class the week after. She's still thinking about how close their faces were the week before, and she hopes that her breath didn't smell weird. Don't worry, honey, she wasn't thinking about it. The last gig went very well, and some people have asked about booking her for their events specifically. She thought that Avon and Milo were a delight to work with, and she hopes they can be friends. She thinks about how hard it is to make friends as an adult, and I relate to that, honestly. She thinks about Jess, but she also thinks about how getting involved with another performer could be a really bad idea, and that she should have known better last time. She also thinks about how women are painted as crazy often, and she thinks about how the thing with her and Jess is literally like non-existent, so there's nothing to get overly invested in anyway. Her joints are a bit mad about not cooling down properly after a gig. Relatable. Jess claps their hands and she's ready to get teaching, and they start with a warm-up, and Ozzy really admires her mastery of the lyra. She had a special bit of sorcery that came from love and passion that could only be spell cast by herself. Her mastery of the lyra was apparent in every interaction she made. It inspired something deep within my soul every time she demonstrated a trick. We love when our leads are entranced. We love it. Ozzy is trying not to get distracted. The class goes by pretty fast. They take turns pulling moves out of a hat near the end before linking them together with like a chosen song. At the end of the class, Jess calls out to Ozzy, and Ozzy is thrilled by this. Jess says, Logan mentioned where you live. Would you give me a ride after our next gig that we have together? She gets a bit nervous with how her eyes are, and she would really appreciate it. Ozzy can tell that this is like very vulnerable for her to like admit this stuff, and she wants to be encouraging, but she's not sure what the right thing to say are, and she doesn't want to come off as pitying. She thinks we all need accommodations for things, and like that's what makes us human. And we learn that Ozzy has an autoimmune disorder and is hypermobile. Oh my god, autoimmune disease club. Bring it in, girl. Kiss. Hug. Ozzy says absolutely and asks for her phone number, which Jess does give to her. Ozzy texts her. Ozzy says, send me your address and I'll come and grab you. And Jess says, thanks so much, I'll see you then. Ozzy then proceeds to word vomit on her. You were incredible, you know, I blurted. Jess looked at me in surprise. I wanted to bridge this chasm between us, but maybe this was the wrong approach. Was that just the dumbest fucking thing to come out of my mouth? I groaned internally and my miserable self continued to run with it. On Lyra, you're the best I've ever seen. queen and a great teacher, I said, fumbling through the words, and tried to make it sound less disastrous as it tumbled from my lips. Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say. We stood silently until I bowed my head in an odd manner and hustled out of there before I said something else strange. Oof, girl. So much of this book is just her putting her foot in her mouth. On the way home, she tries not to think about what Jess thinks about her. She gets home and Trevor asks her why she looks like she ran over something. She word vomits some more. He guesses that it's the hoop artist right away. She doesn't want to make it uncomfortable because she just got here and she doesn't know if Jess is into women and they're working together. And we all know how that worked out for her last time. She feels like she can't stop staring or word vomiting at her. Trevor says what happened at your last studio is because Sean is an asshole. He says we should have clocked him as a bigot earlier and mistakes were made and they got the fuck out of there. Trevor goes on to be like, I still can't believe he outed you and then tried to make you seem like a predator who asked for a threesome and then does that. I don't hate this because I do talk to my friends like this. Ozzy says the audacity of men truly knows no bounds. For real, girl. For real. I know so much gossip about the men at my work. Who are on a different shift, by the way. I never work with them. I don't know why. It's because my friend at work knows so much, and I do love some hot goss, hot tea, you know. She thinks about how her OnlyFans made her feel alive and powerful and free. She thinks about how he cornered her with a threesome as soon as she came out as bi. And after her thinking about the whole breakup thing again, Trevor says, this place isn't like your last one. You were the token queer, but here these people, they don't seem like mean girls stuck in high school. She says she knows that it's different, but she's still being cautious. He tells her to take a breath and not overthink it. He says that if they try to mess with her, he'll fuck some bitches up. And I appreciate him for that, for real. He also says it's okay to have a crush. She tells him about doing Jess's makeup the other day. He asks if it would be so bad if something did happen with them. She says, I don't know, I could get kicked out or forced to quit. And he says that they won't because she's too talented and they need her. She's kind of upset though because the last time it was kind of traumatic for her. And I think her feelings on this are pretty valid because like your livelihood is tied to your job, you know? She says either way, she's nervous as fuck. He validates her and pats her head. She goes to her room and takes a shower. She tries to convince herself that things won't get more complicated and they couldn't be any worse than before. Chapter 6, Jess. Jess is waiting for Ozzy to pick her up. She thinks the text says that Ozzy's on her way. She's running around gathering all her things. The most recent treatment she had for her eyes was a doozy for her nearsighted vision this time. She grabs all of the things she needs and the phone dings again and she goes out to the driveway. Ozzy is there with her hair and makeup already done. Jess wonders to herself if Ozzy knows they get there early to do that. Jess puts her stuff in the back seat as offered. She thanks Ozzy for helping her. Ozzy says she's happy to help. Jess asks if she can help her with her makeup again and Ozzy says she would love to. Jess doesn't mind asking other people to help, but they like know her story already. She also feels very fizzy when Ozzy's face is very close to hers. I don't know why your face is feeling like a soda, girl. Jess tries to start making conversation as they're driving, asks if Ozzy does anything other than circus stuff. Ozzy says she mainly does circus stuff, but she mentors some people on Zoom and in person for juggling. She has a couple of in-person students too, and she sells queer stuff on Etsy and she does some brand collabs on social media. Jess thinks that all sounds exhausting. Jess says she'll have to check out her queer stuff sometime. She briefly remembers seeing some of it on her Instagram, but she's not sure about Ozzy's sexuality. This age-old dilemma. Ozzy just straight up asks her if she's queer and just laughs and said, you just went for it, huh? And she kind of like that there's no guessing games. Ozzy says, well, if you're comfortable sharing. She's very loud and proud about being queer herself since she like came out, you know. Jess comes out to her as a lesbian, but she's kind of putting her foot in her mouth this time instead of Ozzy. Ozzy says she's bi or pan or queer. Most of the time she's bi, but it can be hard for her to label. We understand in this house. Jess thinks that labels can be comforting or confining and she understands that. I will say one thing that annoys me, at least on the internet, I don't have as much experience with this. No, that's not true. I do have equal amount of experience about this in real life. I find people who don't want to use labels often are very condescending to people who do use labels. Like a lot of them very much act like they're more worldly or they know more, or they're just more open-minded or something. And it just never seems to cross their mind that some people's labels or sexuality just aren't fluid at all. Like a lot of lesbians, not fluid. And it's very frustrating when you're a lesbian to kind of hear that. So while I understand like what Jess is saying and what Ozzy's saying because they're talking about themselves themselves and their thoughts and whatever. At the same time, like when I hear someone say stuff like that or like think stuff like that, it makes me concerned. Jess then tries to convince herself that this whole conversation doesn't mean anything, and she tries to get back onto the whole online shop because she is attracted to Ozzy, but she's trying to blame it on her like dry spell. Ozzy says she'll send her a link to the shop. Ozzy asks if Jess does anything on the side too, and Jess is a fitness instructor on the side, but it's mostly circus stuff. She also gets roped into working with kids a lot. Ozzy says that kids aren't like her number one thing, but that those jobs sometimes are just way easier than the ones with adults. Jess agrees and says they also often pay better. I work with kids. I don't recommend it. Just saying. Like, comment, subscribe so I don't have to do it anymore. They're now at the gig. They're going to take turns on the hoop for like a couple of songs each and then hop off when they need a break. We learn that Mila, Avon, Logan, Jess, and Ozzy are now all considered the dream team now. Logan started the company, like I said, but this is where we learn it. The other ones, not including Ozzy, are also just like the most seasoned. They ask if that's how Ozzy's old company kind of worked, and Logan levels with Ozzy and says that she knows some shit from her previous place and it's shit that she did not love. Ozzy's like, okay, so then why did you take me? And Logan says, because you're an amazing performer. And she had a feeling that that same shit kind of drove Ozzy off, pretty much. Ozzy asks if she asked around and Logan says she did. Ozzy asks if she knows what happened with her and Logan does. Everyone else is listening like crazy. When the tea is good, I can't blame them. Logan promises they won't outcast her and says that Sean is a grade A asshole and that Ozzy deserves better and that she's glad that she found better. Avon says, fuck yeah, you got better, woo! Jess is very curious and wonders if Logan will tell her the whole thing later or not. Mila says that Sean sounds like an idiot. Ozzy says that he was and that she shouldn't have let it spiral out of control, but it was too late by the time she kind of realized. Logan hugs Ozzy fiercely. Jess's heart aches for Ozzy, which is pretty sweet. Ozzy thanks them for letting her be a part of all of this. Avon's like, if we weren't all about to hop on some hoops, I would say we should take some shots. Ozzy said she'd like that. She then turns to stare at Jess. Jess now has the urge to punch Sean because of like the hurt and anguish on Ozzy's face, well, like in her irises specifically. Not her eyes, just her irises. Damn, that's crazy. Logan says, I love you all, you're the best fucking people. If anyone tries to fuck with you, you know who to call. Like, everyone laughs except for me. Maybe you just had to be there. They have 20 minutes until the show starts. Ozzy starts to work on Jess's makeup. Jess is trying to not like look too hard and just stay still. They're done pretty quickly. Jess thinks it's almost like too quick. She thanks Ozzy again. Jess says, I don't know what happened at your old place, but I'm glad you're here. Ozzy says, thanks Jess, that means a lot coming from you. They then stare into each other's eyes for a few moments before Avon comes in and ruins it. Boo! More staring! Jess does the hoop first and then Logan goes next. Genevieve yells to Jess in the crowd and Jess wonders why she's even here. Why you so obsessed with me? Boy, I wanna know. Genevieve is stoked to see her and hugs her. Jess does not return the hug. Ozzy looks confused and like she's trying to do math. Genevieve asks Jess why she's been avoiding her and Jess isn't gonna admit it to her. I was for sure avoiding her, but I sure as shit wasn't going to admit that to her. Her energy was bubbling around me like mosquitoes. I wanted to squish and bat away. Genevieve grated on a special part of my brain that made me feel itchy and skittish. I kind of love the intensity, I'm not gonna lie. The description, great. Also, I hate when people can't fucking take a hint either. Gross. Jess asks her why she's here. She's here with some friends from this apartment complex. Ozzy comes in to save the day. She's concerned and she comes to like check in. Genevieve introduces herself saying she and Jess used to date. She winks, but I don't think people wink as much as they do in books, but also this book specifically. There's gonna be a lot of winking. Ozzy introduces herself, but there's a bit of bite in her voice. Uh-oh, watch out. Genevieve asks if she's part of the circus. Ozzy starts to say yes when. Ozzy started, but I interrupted to do something so incredibly stupid, so dumb, and yet so fucking brilliant that I wish I could give myself a gold star sticker. And my girlfriend. I wrapped my arm around her waist and pulled her close. To Ozzy's credit, she didn't look fazed in the least bit as she settled her arm around me. She was just a smidge taller than me, but not by much. Our bodies folded into one another perfectly like the girlfriends we were pretending to be. Okay, real talk. I love fake dating as a trope, especially when it's teenagers, but I don't feel like it makes as much sense overall when it's adults. depending on the setup, unless it's like the fiance farce by, I can't remember her name. Oh, Alexandria Bellifer, there we go. Where there was like inheritance money involved. Or like this book, when you need someone to leave you alone. I don't hate this. I could hate it, but I don't. I don't hate it. Genevieve is like instantly deleted. She says that was fast. She says that she's never seen Ozzy before. Jess knows that this was a bad idea. And she's also mad because Genevieve has been seeing like tons of people since they broke up. So this is very hypocritical. Ozzy says she joined a few weeks ago and it was practically love at first sight, which is funny because it kind of was a little bit. Jess is like, okay, I can sell this. She says, sorry, I haven't been more available because we've been in that honeymoon phase. Genevieve says they should all hang out sometime, but she's surprised that it's not a messy dynamic with them both being in the same company. Logan runs up and is like, you can't stop true love. I love her. I hope she's one of the main characters of one of the other books. I would enjoy that, I think. Genevieve says hello. Logan says it's Ozzy's turn after Avon. And don't mind us, Genevieve. We have a very challenging job to do. She tells her to enjoy her drinks. And then when they break off from Genevieve, Logan is like, that was fun. She also says, dating, huh? Good luck getting out of that. Jess is just looking at Ozzy and not saying, and says to Ozzy, don't say a goddamn word, because she looks full of mischief. She then thinks that she just made things like unnecessarily complicated. Chapter 7, Ozzy. They're having a toast to the busy season. Logan says that Danny should be joining them and that Danny is being added to some upcoming shows. Ozzy asks, who's Danny? Ozzy can't keep track of who's who because it's been a crazy few months since they started. Danny is apparently an amazing performer and musician. Mila is her fangirl. I'm pretty sure they're who the second book is about. Jess decides to be messy and asks where Jake is. And Mila, you invited him, right? She tosses her brown hair over her shoulder, but one of her teal pieces slip out of where they're meant to be, and Ozzy wants to tuck it back in. That's so cute, I can't even lie. See, I do love everyone. I just hate terrible books. Mila says he's taking a night in. Logan asks when she's gonna dump him and she wraps her arms around Mila. Mila just starts crying. Danny shows up and asks if Mila's alright. Danny has they, them pronouns, by the way. When I started writing the script, I didn't know that. So I'm gonna try and correct it while I'm saying words. Mila says to Danny it's just some stupid relationship drama, and then she excuses herself to go to the bathroom. Avon says she's gonna check on her in a few minutes. Ozzy introduces herself to Danny. Danny says, you and Jess, you're dating. Ozzy loves the electricity between them. She also thinks that Jess looks ravishing and is like describing what she looks like. This girl is all in already. It's only been a couple months. Ozzy says, I'm gonna get a drink. Jess, do you want to come with? But she tugs her along. She's not waiting for a reply. Probably to iron out this whole fake dating thing. Ozzy isn't upset about continuing to pretend. She just wants to know why. And Ozzy asks Jess what she's doing. Jess is like, what do you mean? Ozzy is like, what is up with this whole charade? Charade? I don't know. I feel like we say it charade up here, but I've heard people say charade. I don't know. Jess admits that she doesn't know what she's doing, but that her ex is on her last damn nerve and she needs her ex to back off. Her ex also knows that she would never be with Mila, Avon, or Logan, so Ozzy was her best option. Ozzy asks, what about Danny? It seems like you are all friends. She thought the fake dating would be for like one night only. She doesn't understand why they're still keeping up that shtick. And Jess is like, what if we just did it for a few weeks while Genevieve gets the hint? Because Genevieve is a snooper and we can say it just didn't work out after a while and go back to being friends. Ozzy asks if the training company is going to be weird about it, and she starts having some like flashbacks from last time. Jess comes in to like comfort her, and Ozzy says, I can't do this again. You know how my last company thing went to shit. Jess says, hey, Logan knows what's going on already, and she would never put up with any of that. Ozzy thinks that that's easy for her to say when that shit didn't happen to her, and she thinks that this is a very bad idea. But Jess is like weak, and she's like, only a couple more weeks, please? And Ozzy just knows that she should say no, and she says that she's gonna regret this. And she says, if this blows up, you have to take the fall for it, not me. Jess says, don't worry, I'll take care of you, and winks. Enough with the winking. One of my only gripes about this book. Why is there so much winking? Ozzy says, I need a shot, and you're buying it. And then they snuggle up at the bar. Someone says, Ozzy, is that you? It's Brittany, that awful bitch. She says she's in town visiting. What are the odds? She looks at Ozzy like a predator. Ozzy imagines punching her right in the teeth. I love this. Brittany asks what she's doing here. Jess says that Ozzy is a full-time performer at Cirque Callisto, and she puts her arm around her waist. Brittany goes, are you two together? You really moved on quick. Ozzy gets mad because it's been months. Is that enough time? Like, I've been with my wife since I was 19, so I don't have like a good grip on that stuff. Let me know in the comments. Is a couple months enough time? Does it depend on the length of the relationship? I don't know. Sean was a mistake that I kept making for far too long. My tone was cold and detached. I think the only mistake was Sean ever being interested in someone like you in the first place. She shot back, fire burning in her eyes. Why, oh why was this happening right now? You know, men tend to disappoint women most of the time, but you seem like someone who would be fine with mediocrity. Jess threw back her shot aggressively and shot daggers at Brittany. Well, Brittany stuttered through clenched teeth, her eyes wide as she seemed to search for a retort as Jess's words hung in the air. At least I'm not a whore. She practically spat at me. My mouth hung open. What was this? Fucking middle school? This could not actually be happening. No, 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 no. Please someone kill me now. Jess's arm tightened around me, her steady, warm touch grounding me through this madness. You have 5 seconds to get the hell away from us before that drink in your hands ends up all over that pretty little dress of yours, Jess said with a smile. She took a looming step forward, her fingers flexing as if to say, don't test me. Christ, I needed more alcohol for this. Grabbing the shot, I poured it back, letting the heat settle in my veins. I would listen to my girlfriend. She really likes whores, but has a particular disdain for hateful, homophobic cunts. I raised an eyebrow at her, daring her to say something else. I loved all of that interaction. 5 stars, no notes. Brittany is just flabbergasted. She's like, wait until everyone hears about this. And she threatens to send an email to like Ozzy's new company, but Logan pops up like she was summoned. She says, I own the company and I already know. She says it's 3-on-1. Do you need an escort out or can you figure it out? Brittany says, fuck all of you before leaving. Jess immediately checks on Ozzy. Ozzy says it's fine. I just wasn't expecting to ever see her around again. Logan says, fuck that bitch. Let's do another round. Jess starts teasing Ozzy a little. Jess asks if this whole fake relationship was actually advantageous to her, like teasing her. Ozzy says, maybe. Logan says, oh, this should be good. I adore Logan. Somebody give her some edibles on me, okay? They rejoin the party and Jess and Ozzy dance together. Ozzy finds her stunning. I can't get over how cute it is. It really is truly cute. And she thinks that this feels like the most natural thing in the world. Chapter 8, Jess. Jess is with Logan and Jess asks Logan if this is a good idea, doing a big duo piece together with Ozzy. Logan says, since you two are lovers now, it will be beautiful for you to do a piece together. And Jess tells her to fuck off. Logan says Ozzy is the best they have for hoops right now, and Logan needs something off of her plate, and trapeze is like her true love anyway. Jess knows that Logan only did the hoop stuff for her, and Logan says that this will be good, and they already have someone who wants to book them. Logan's face turns sour though, and Jess asks, why do you look like that right now? Before she can answer, Ozzy walks in, but Jess is like too gay to function because of how muscular Ozzy is. She doesn't want to allow herself any hot thoughts about Ozzy. 1, you already masturbated to her. I'm just saying, okay? 2, why not? You're grown adults. Think some hot thoughts. Just be discreet, you know? Ozzy smirks at them and Jess's heart flutters. I do love this kind of thing. I don't know. Bet you guys weren't expecting a positive romance review. Logan says, hi, I was just talking about the gig for the duo Lyra piece. Jess says, yeah, and you looked like you ate a lemon after you said it. Logan is avoiding eye contact. Jess runs up and shakes Logan. She says, fine. Fine. Jess says, why do I feel like this is going to be a bad idea? Logan announces that the person booking this is Genevieve. That sick fuck. What a weirdo. I personally don't ever want to see my ex do circus things. Now, my ex is a man and I'm a lesbian, but even if my ex was suddenly a woman, I don't think I want to see that. Jess says, you've got to be kidding me. Apparently Genevieve works for like a big event company in the city. Logan says it's a huge gala with a super huge price tag. Jess asks why someone else can't do it. Ozzy says she does seem oddly invested in you all the time. Jess thinks she hears a hint of jealousy, but convinces herself it's not. Like, we all know the truth. Logan says she asked for Jess specifically and said she'd pay more. She apparently wants a real couple who are in love. Genevieve said Jess and her new partner can be the star performers. Ozzy says that's some manipulative bullshit. Logan says it is, and they can say no to this job, but they might want to think about how much it pays before doing it. It's literally tens of thousands of dollars. Jess knows that this is to keep Genevieve in her business though. Logan tells him it might split like an interesting way depending on the other performers helping for like the ambient stuff and helping set up and taking stuff down, but they haven't seen this large amount of money for a private event ever. Ozzy says it's up to Jess. Jess asks if she's really sure she wants to turn down all that money just because Jess wants her to. And Ozzy doesn't even hesitate when she says, yes, I would turn it down for you. And Jess thinks this is a nice thing for her not real girlfriend to do. Jess says, okay, and paces around for a minute. She says that they're taking the job and they're going to do the most lovey-dovey, sexually charged stuff ever seen. She wants Genevieve to seethe with jealousy for doing this bullshit power play. I love it. Iconic. Logan hypes her up and says she has to answer like 1 trillion emails now. She tells them to get started on their sexy setup. After she's gone, Ozzy says thanks for taking the job. The money could really help me out. She mentions that she has a lot of like body disability things going on and it's hard to keep up between that and paying health insurance. The struggle is real, honestly. That's one of the only reasons for right now I'm keeping my job. Even though I hate it, it's because of health insurance. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe so I don't have to work that job someday. You guys have been great, by the way. This does make Jess feel better about doing this with her though. Ozzy also thanks her for standing up to Brittany the other night. Jess asked what happened at Ozzy's last company. She goes over the whole thing again, including telling Jess about the OnlyFans and that she ended up really liking doing it. Jess tries to talk, but Ozzy keeps going for like a minute and starts to get tearful. Jess hugs her and says, fuck them. She tells her that she and Logan have done like several nude shoots on their own terms. She says, you get to decide what you do with your body and fuck everybody else. Hell yeah, we're pro sex in this house. Ozzy says, thank you. She explains she told Logan because she knew that she had done like a boudoir shoot and it would be safer. Jess knows that not everywhere is as cool as the place that they work now. She says she's glad that Ozzy's here. They are holding hands and staring at each other, breathing loudly. Oh, to be gay and falling in love with your fake girlfriend. They break apart when they hear Danny on the flute. They then start to iron out what they should do and like who will do what. Their coordination and timing is horrible as they're practicing. They keep bumping into each other and apologizing. Iconic gay behavior. At one point, they fall face first into each other's crotches and start giggling. Avon is howling with laughter and says that they look like a fucking mess. Ozzy agrees. Jess tells a story about when she and Logan used to work together, and Logan appears because she is Candyman and says they'll only get better, but let's try not to kick anyone unconscious. Jess says part of it is they're still trying to get to know each other and duo is like really intimate. Mila says it's a good thing you're fake dating then. Jess tells them that they need to play along because they're the only people who know. Avon says their secret is safe with them. Jess asks what Ozzy's doing tomorrow night. Sheepishly, Ozzy says that she has a date with her couch and some pizza. Jess wants to know if she can do her makeup one more time. Ozzy says anything for my girlfriend, but she whispers it in her ear. And I was launched into space. I loved it. She says, text me a time and I will be there. I nodded, squishing my thighs together to release some of the pressure that was building there. No, no, no. This weird muscle mommy spell she had on me was getting out of hand. Get it together, Jess.
You are Elastigirl! My God, pull yourself together!
Ozzy says she's gonna practice some juggling and she says thanks for that disastrous rehearsal. When she's gone, Logan says you're in trouble. She's right. Logan says you have nobody to blame but yourself. Everyone in the room is living for this and so am I. I'm really glad that the friends are in on it because I think it makes it better and more believable. Jess knows that they're right but can't stop smiling. Chapter 9, Ozzy. Ozzy is going to Jess's house. She's in pajamas when she opens the door. Ozzy teases Jess saying it's cute. Jess says it's comfy and she's a proud 36-year-old woman in a pajama onesie. Ozzy did not know that Jess was 36. I didn't either, but I am so excited. I love seeing protagonists over 30. I'm really sick of all the freaking 18-year-olds. We find out that Ozzy is 26 and it's an age gap, but it's an age gap that I'm not mad at. 26 is like a fully developed frontal lobe. Just kidding for the science nerds. I know it's more complicated than that, okay? Jess teases her and says, oh, to be young. Ozzy says, please, these bag of bones feel like they're ancient. Then describes all of the cracking and popping sounds. And as someone with an autoimmune disorder, mood as fuck. I have to do this physical management thing for my work. I hate it. Awful every year. But I warn everybody every time about the popping and clicking and gross noises. Jess brings Ozzy a mug and says, take your pick. Ozzy asks if she could get started on the makeup. She thinks how nice Jess's house smells because it smells like her. She doesn't want to make it weird. Thank fuck someone is keeping their inside thoughts inside for once. Jess wants a dramatic look for tonight. While doing this, Ozzy thinks there is no way that Jess reciprocates the crush. She would be dead wrong. Jess is super into her. Ozzy is even more affected by the makeup this time. She wants her to run her tongue across Jess's lips. No thanks. The visual of that bothers me. Jess asks how it's looking. It's almost done. They are just going to add lashes. Lashes, my greatest enemy. They're very hard to wear with glasses. I would love to wear them. I have pairs. I just don't because if I take my glasses off, I'll get a migraine. So Ozzy thinks that this time feels oddly special and she cherishes it, which is very sweet. She has to give herself a pep talk about how they're friends. If you have to keep telling yourself that, I hate to break it to you, but
honey, you've got a big storm coming.
she thinks that she has no business lusting after her phony partner. Why not though? Get your girl. It doesn't make any sense. You're adults. It's fine. Ozzy asks about the gig going on tonight. It's for some wealthy guy's birthday party. Jess thinks it should be easy and hopefully there will be a big tip. Ozzy finishes the makeup. Jess tries to look at it. She thinks that it looks good, but she really can't tell because of her eye holes. Jess is going to eat something quick before they do lips. She asks if Ozzy is allergic to anything. Ozzy doesn't do dairy or gluten. This is easy for Jess because Logan can't do those either. Jess winks at her and this somehow makes Ozzy even more attracted to her. Ozzy wants to get out of here so she doesn't say something stupid, but Jess says the least I can do is feed you. This makes Ozzy's heart melt a little bit because no one cooks for her, including herself. I wish I didn't have to cook. It can be a lot on top of everything else, to be honest. Ozzy says thank you and groans about how good the food is. Jess asks if she can tell Ozzy something and Ozzy says yes. Jess starts to explain her eye condition. It is central seros chorioretinopathy. I don't know how to say that altogether. Chorioretinopathy. Okay, I think that's right. And without treatments, she could potentially lose her vision. And she could also lose it anyway with complications. It gets worse when she's stressed out. So she says, thank you so much for helping me. And Ozzy says, thank you for sharing. Just tell me what you need. I'm here, I'm there, I'm wherever. She tells Jess again that she has several autoimmune disorders and it causes some food complications. And it affects the way she trains, the way her brain works, and how she socializes. Just two weirdos trying to figure out life with funny bits and pieces of ourselves that work in ways society doesn't understand, Jess said, giving me a crooked smile and my own mouth tipped up. I liked that definition. They finish eating their food. They're going to put on the finishing touches. Jess chooses red lipstick. Doing the lipstick does something for Ozzy. I feel like they're like this picture. Jess leans in for a kiss and without thinking, Ozzy just pulls her into a kiss. Jess isn't moving right away and that makes Ozzy worried that she read it wrong, but she didn't because Jess is kissing her back and Jess straddles her lap. They are having a great time until the door knocks and then they fly apart and Jess yells, just a minute. It's her ride to the gig. Ozzy cleans up the mess with a makeup wipe and then reapplies the lipstick. Ozzy says good luck and then heads out the door. It's one of the student members there to pick up Jess. Her name is Emily. Ozzy gets in her car and takes some gulping breaths. She is not sure what the fuck just happened. She ran out of there like someone who was on fire. Girl, you're messing up your chances. You need to bag that baddie, okay? She thinks about how dating someone could fuck up this opportunity, but they already said that they don't care, so it does feel a little bit forced, but at the same time, I'm like, it's pretty fresh for her. We're gonna cut her a break. She thinks that it was one thing to pretend to fake date, not actually date. She is also freaking out because she promised Trevor they would be here for at least a year. She's trying to figure out what to do next as she drives home. Chapter 10, Jess. Jess is with Logan. She says she has a secret and she tells her that she and Ozzy kissed. Logan gives no reaction at first. Logan says, you're dating, so I assume intimacy would be normal, and Jess brings up that they're not in fact dating. And Logan says semantics. Jess brings up that this could be super weird and awkward. Logan asks her why she's worried and would it be so bad if you actually dated? She says, you're adults, you're both hot, you both clearly like one another, just let it happen. Jess says it's not that simple. Logan argues that it really is. Logan kind of negs her into asking Ozzy out. Jess says, fine, maybe I will. Logan says she needs to loosen up and that Genevieve really got her panties in a twist and she thinks Ozzy is the perfect one to unravel those panties. Jess says she will think about asking her out. Logan says she just wants her to be happy. Logan's phone chimes and she scowls. One of the performers for the residency show dropped out. She needs to find a new one. She needs a singer. Logan asks if Jess wants to do it, and she's like, hell no. No one wants to hear my singing. Jess says she knows a hand balancer who also sings. She says he's pretty good and his name is Bex. They're going to ask to see if he's available by sliding into his DMs. Jess brings up Logan dating and says, you got up in my business. Logan says there's no dating happening for me. She's running a business and is a performer. Jess says you could get anyone you want then. Logan says that's kind of the problem. She doesn't have time or energy for online dating, and she doesn't have time for BS that isn't the circus. Jess thinks to herself that Logan is very passionate, but she's clearly lonely sometimes. She calls it best friend intuition. I call it common sense and observational skills. She adds onto her thoughts that she doesn't need anyone to make her happy, and she then thinks all about Logan's like positive qualities. They tease each other a bit and about bringing more to this conversation next time. Jess promises to report about her and Ozzy. Jess then asks how Mila is. Logan says she doesn't know. She's pretty tight-lipped about Jake. Logan can't believe he's being such an ass. Then says, actually, I can believe it. I just can't believe she hasn't kicked him out yet. But she says we know how hard ending a relationship can be. Jess says, yeah, especially one that's been going on for years. Logan is worried that she'll break up with him and he won't leave her house. Jess says if it gets to that point, we'll all be there to help her. I think she might want to look into squatters' rights. It can be way worse than you might think, just so you know. Logan says they've all had their fair share of moving out of places quickly. We learn that she used to be married. I really hope she's one of the main characters for one of these books. Jess hopes that Genevieve will get off her ass soon. Logan says you can tell her to fuck off. Jess has tried in more digestible terms, but she keeps coming around like an annoying gnat. Also, she's like a good contact to have, and she doesn't want to mess up all the business stuff. Logan says that the business would survive. Jess's emotional and physical well-being are more important. Logan says that Genevieve is hiring them because she knows they're the best. I'm not sure about that. I really think it's to keep tabs on her ex. Bex responded, he's in. Logan has to send a contract now. She also does a little dance. Jess is hyping Logan up. Logan asks if they should text Avon to see how they know each other because they're mutuals on some kind of social media or something. Logan and Jess thinks it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Logan works on setting up that contract. Jess thinks about how she and Ozzy haven't talked since they kissed. She's wondering what she could say that wouldn't make this weird. Whatever you do, don't say, we need to talk, okay? That's the only rules, I think. She wants to do it in person, but she doesn't know when she'll see her. They have a rehearsal in like the next couple of days. She thinks about waiting until then. She worries that texting loses some nuance from your voice. And honestly, I felt this in my soul. Logan is done sending that contract. Jess asks if she thinks she should try in person or texting. Logan says in person. Logan has also sent a text to Avon to ask about Bex. He was amazing when they saw him perform live. They're excited about this. They end the evening by watching some anime. If they're not watching Utena, I don't want to hear about it. I'm just kidding. But I do love Utena, and if you decide to watch it, please check the trigger warnings. Oh my god. Jess wonders if Ozzy will be surprised about her asking her out and thinks there's no way she's going to say yes, right? And she thinks about the kiss again and then thinks there's only one way to find out if she'll say yes. Chapter 11, Ozzy. They're in some kind of clothing store, her and Trevor. Ozzy thinks she's a coward for avoiding Jess since their kiss, but she knows that she can't hide forever and she needs to handle this shit like an adult. But she's acting more like a kid afraid to get in trouble. Aren't we all at our core just kids who are afraid to get in trouble? Trevor says he can see the gears turning in her head. Ozzy feels like she's in high school right now, and she says as much. She wonders why she ran out of there like a scared little gay. Trevor says, because you're a scared little gay. Ozzy says, thank you for that. Trevor feels like there's nothing to lose. She was already afraid of fake dating. He tells her that it's going to be an upgrade to genuine dating with maybe physical benefits, or they might do like a friends with benefits situation if dating is off the table. Ozzy says she doesn't know. Trevor says you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Just do a real relationship. Real dating sounds much easier. Ozzy is worried that this will turn into Ozzy's Tragedy 2.0. He validates her thoughts, but he then reminds her that she was dating a straight white man. As someone who grew up surrounded by them, don't do it if you can avoid it. It's not worth it, trust me, okay? Ozzy Ozzy admits that Jess knows about the shit that went down and she didn't care about all that stuff. I mean, she cared, but it didn't she wasn't negatively impacted by that. Trevor says, as she should, we all need to get the bag. Trevor is great at finding outfit pieces, apparently. And she points it out and he says she's distracted and he happens to just be great at this. Ozzy has been avoiding studio times when Jess is going to be there because she doesn't know what to do or say. Trevor tells her that eventually you guys are going to have to see each other. He wishes he could witness this beautiful mess, at least until someone confesses, and then they'll fall dramatically into each other's arms and rip each other's clothes off. Ozzy tells him he could have delivered that in a less aggressive and less descriptive way. He points out that she juggles all kinds of things very well and that because she can do impossible stuff, he thinks that she can handle an honest conversation with Jess. He says this non-communicative BS belongs in the past. Hell yeah. Real adults in this book. Ozzy says this is a lot of tough love today. Trevor and I both agree that she needs it. He asks if she wanted him to placate her with sweet nothings. The friends are all vibes, honestly. Ozzy says no. He says that's what I thought. Trevor drives them and Ozzy decides to look at Instagram. It seems like her old company blocked her and she brings this up to Trevor. She checks on Trevor's phone and they haven't blocked him. They dish about how they can't believe they blocked her. I can't believe everyone blocked you. What kind of fuckery is going on there that Sean has brainwashed them into thinking you are some whore who eats men with her pussy? I blinked at him and burst out laughing. Amazing. Should I do a photo shoot of that for my OnlyFans? I'm kind of obsessed with the idea. Trevor laughed too as we pulled up to our next thrifting destination. It's kind of insane imagery, but I'm digging it. Trevor says he's sorry and that it still stings though. She says it does, but that she wants to forget about them and just move on. She appreciates that Logan has created a lovely space for all of the weirdos. Trevor thinks that Ozzy's found a home there for her and Ozzy agrees. She asks if Trevor knows some dancers for an event and if he wants to be put on a list for other gigs, and he's down and asks for her contact info. They continue shopping. Ozzy continues to think about what to say to Jess. Hey, sorry, I just made out with your face while I was doing your makeup, but I think you're super hot. And I definitely have a crush on you, even though we were pretending to date. Do you think we could go on an actual date, or is that just off the table entirely? Have all of us felt similar things? This was super relatable to me again. Trying to tell someone you like them is really hard. Again, my wife was a deeply closeted Catholic girl when I met her, and I just could not work up the courage after several months of falling in love with her, and I don't blame 18-year-old me at all. She's determined though, Ozzy, to put on her big girl panties and just ask her and stop avoiding her. Her phone buzzes and it's the group chat for her work. There's nothing more that I hate than a group chat. It's either overwhelming or no one uses it. Logan announces that Bex is going to be a full-time performer for them. Ozzy doesn't know who that is. Avon knows a sexy little secret about Bex. Jess and Ozzy want to know. Apparently Avon and Bex hooked up and it was the best sex Avon ever had. Ozzy laughs out loud at this. Ozzy says that she's excited that the space is much more sex positive and it's the most sex positive place that she has ever been in. And she messages them that. And Logan has apparently subscribed to her OnlyFans and wants to do a group shoot sometime together, and Ozzy nearly falls out of her chair because Jess is in too. Ozzy starts losing it at the idea of Jess's naked body against her own. Trevor asks if she's watching porn out there, and Ozzy says no, and he says keep your sex noises to a minimum. Mila is shy, but she says she could direct it. Danny is also in. Ozzy's heart is just warmed at this wonderful group of humans. Avon wants to get back to talking about Bex. Logan says you'll have another chance at Bex soon. Don't be weird. Everyone responded haha. Ozzy ends the chapter hoping that the conversation with Jess won't be as weird as she thought it might be. Chapter 12, Jess. There is a surprise private gig that popped up this week. Ozzy and Jess are coupled together for it. Logan sent an SOS because they're paying big since it's rushed. They had booked someone else and it fell through apparently. Ozzy and Jess meet at a random penthouse downtown where the party is. Logan sent some people to come early to set up. They say hi. Jess is feeling shy. She says that Logan will be here in a little bit to make sure everything is okay and that it's good to see Ozzy. Ozzy gives a tight-lipped nod, then opens her mouth to say something but is interrupted. A bubbly blonde greets them. They talk briefly and they go over the logistics. They get rushed into the room and she's going to be back shortly. They barely speak as they move around and warm up. Ozzy takes the first round on the hoop. She was quite the captivating performer and my chest warmed every time I watched her. Even though I was arguably better on Lyra, Ozzy had a style all her own. It was clever and witty with saucy hand movements and facial expressions that drew you in. She gracefully descended and I took up my post on the lollipop. I love the pining. I love the admiration of Ozzy's skills. I think that it's nice because it goes deeper than just checking someone out. The crowd is loving it. They keep going. Logan shows up to check in. She says Ozzy looks great. Jess asks if Logan sprinted here. Logan says she's been rushing and then the elevator wasn't working. Logan asks if Jess and Ozzy have hashed out their shit. Jess says we're at a job. Logan says still I thought you would have like figured that out quickly. Jess says that after this gig they can figure out their feelings because right now they need to make that money. Logan says right, okay, I'm gonna mingle, holler if you need me. Jess and Ozzy switch again. Jess signals to her that Logan is here. Jess checks out Ozzy in her unitard. She's annoyed about her own body and her own hormones. She gets up on the hoop and tries to forget about Ozzy for now, but she thinks maybe they can have a chat soon. After a while, Logan waves at her to come off. Jess feels like the crowd is being kind of weird, like they're just desensitized to it and they're more like decorations. She goes up to Logan and Ozzy. Guess who's here?
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu!
It's Clefairy!
It's Sean. Great. He says, Ozzy, what a surprise to see you here. Ozzy is very uncomfortable. She says, Sean, and then like crosses her arms. Jess wonders why these people keep popping up everywhere. Jess is pissed already, and we love people who will fight for the people they're into. Logan whispers to Jess, who the fuck does he think he is? Jess tells Logan to wait and see if Ozzy needs help, but she thinks she's got this. Ozzy says that she saw Brittany the other day, and it's odd that he's also here, especially since this isn't anywhere near where their training thing is. And she says, I would know. I wanted to get as far away from you people as possible. He says that they were here on a trip together. He looked like every dumb entitled guy I'd ever met, like a walking Ken doll that was always looking for his Barbie. As a feral femme lesbian, I love when my fellow lesbians judge and describe men like this. There are only like two kinds of men to me, Ken from Barbie and men who look like they should be on Duck Dynasty. I know that there are more kinds of men, but in New Hampshire, those are the main kinds of men. Ozzy says great. He reveals that they're dating now. She says okay. He says some snarky BS about how he's surprised she's getting these types of gigs. This makes Jess even more furious, and Logan has to physically hold her back, but she looks angry too.
Why, I oughta... Let me at him! Let me at him! Here, hold me back. Okay. Let me at him! Let me at him! Okay! I think you're missing the basic point here.
She says, you certainly liked a lot of things about me before you found out my body wasn't yours to use and possess. None of the guests are noticing this, which is good though. He said that she did this to herself. He just exposed the real you, a lying bitch. Jess storms over and says, sorry, I need to borrow my girlfriend. Ozzy looks like she is holding back a laugh. He's like, excuse me? And apparently he's starting to look extra ugly. Jess says, yes, Ozzy is in high demand as one of our professional performers. She says she's gotten more requests than anyone else in the company and says that they love to celebrate extremely talented queer women. Logan snorts in the background. He does not know what to say to that. He tries to say that female empowerment is very important. She's like, empowering women is extremely necessary, and if you'll excuse us. He tries to say, you should know, and then he grabs Jess's upper arm. Get ready for her pink taser and pepper spray, bitch. Well, if she's anything like me, I have those and I take them to when my wife is using the bathroom in public because I'm not about that life. Try it, bitch. Those people in Massachusetts who just sued that hotel, I would have been in prison. She tells him to get off of her right fucking now. She threatens to ruin him. She says he'll be lucky to ever procreate again. And if you look at Ozzy or speak her name again, I'll ruin your company. She grabs his wrist and pulls it behind his back. He whines about his shoulder. Logan says, if you touch her again, and I will sue you so aggressively, you will be lucky to work anywhere ever again. And she gets in his face. Jess then says, if you want to be able to use your arm, I recommend ice and Advil. I would never recommend anything to him. Ozzy tells him to find a reason to leave. He tries to say that Ozzy is a bad investment to Logan. Logan says, and you're not very interesting to look at. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Damn, she really hit him with the bye-bye. He leaves and Logan marches after him to make sure he's leaving. Jess asks Ozzy if she's okay and grabs her hand. And she says, I'll pick you up this time because her eyeballs are now working normally. Jess gets up and gives Ozzy her hand to help her up. They have parked next to each other outside. Jess wants another kiss. Ozzy says, I think you should kiss me. And then they kiss. But then they're like full on making out right outside of work. And Ozzy starts kissing her jaw and neck. You all probably know how I feel about public shit at this point. I don't know what to think about it, but it's just not for me. Ozzy is feeling all wet down south. Logan yells hell yes from the door to the studio and whistles at them. They pull apart. Logan says, don't stop on my account. I love the show. This embarrasses them. Jess tells her to fuck off and flips her off. Logan does go back inside. Jess says, on that note, I'll send you the deets for our date and we can revisit this later. And she scrapes her fingers against Ozzy's nipples. No, thank you. Also, why did the author use the word scraping? Ugh. Ozzy says she can't wait and gives her one more kiss and grabs her ass. Jess says they're going to have a lot of fun. They both get in their respective cars and Ozzy thinks that she's in deep for Jess already and screw pretend dating. I'm ready for the real thing. I just want to say I don't think the fake dating lasted long enough. I guess it was about halfway, but for my taste, no. Where's the pining? Where's the slowly falling for one another, pretending to be together? Where is the having to kiss in public to sell the lie? I wanted all that stuff. But I didn't get it. Chapter 14, Ozzy. Trevor tells Ozzy that she looks nice. Ozzy is very anxious and she is worried about royally fucking this up. Ozzy says thanks though. He asks what time the date is. It's at 6:30. Trevor points out that it's 5:30. I have entered into waiting time and cannot be pushed out of it. The only logical thing was to get ready and wait. It was my anxious curse to be doomed to be in waiting time purgatory because what if it took 3 times as long to get ready as it normally would and then I was late? This is so relatable though. It feels like I can't do something if other things are coming up. It kills my productivity. It's killing me. Trevor says that's neurodivergency at its finest. This makes Ozzy laugh, but she pretends to watch TV and mindlessly scroll on her phone. This is a whole mood. She's getting more anxious to the point where she starts pacing around and Jess sends her a text saying she's 5 minutes away. Hopefully Siri sent that text. She's finally here. Trevor says go get her. Ozzy heads out the door and Jess looks very pretty. Ozzy tells her as much and they hug. Jess says thank you, you do too. There's a lot of blushing, a lot of checking each other out. They're holding hands as Jess leads her to the car. When they're in the car, Jess gives her the aux cord and says it's passenger princess privilege. My wife doesn't get this privilege because every time we drive together, I drive, which means that I would never get to listen to any of my music. Ozzy is honored and asks about the vibe Jess normally goes for listening to. Jess says angsty dark music. Turns out they both like the same kind of music. Yay. Ozzy asks where Jess is taking her while they get driving. They're gonna go to her favorite poke bowl spot as long as Ozzy likes it, but she has other options if Ozzy hates sushi or hates fish or just hates sesame seeds. Lucky for her, Ozzy likes all of those things. I want a poke bowl kind of bad, but the closest place to me is 30 minutes away. Cries in New Hampshire. Ozzy like strokes her thigh in the car. Jess says great about the food thing, but she's blushing a little bit. They drive in comfortable silence while Ozzy has her hand on Jess's thigh. Ozzy thinks to herself she wants to know what Jess's O face would look like. Damn, do people like really go around, like walk around thinking this shit? Like, I don't know, maybe I've been married for too long, so like I don't know what you think about at like my big age when you're like dating or whatever. But I have never thought these things when it wasn't in like a sexual context. I don't know, it's just a little odd to me. Maybe it's Maybelline, maybe it's the autism. But Ozzy thinks there's no need to rush. Jess says respectfully, if you don't stop doing that with your hand, I may have to pull over. Ozzy laughs and moves her hand up higher a little teasingly and then she slides it away. She says no need for that, I'll try my best to keep my hands off you. Jess says that Ozzy is naughty as they pull into the restaurant parking lot. Ozzy says, "You haven't seen anything yet," and Jess giggles. Ozzy wants to make her laugh more. It's cute. They head inside, they get drinks and appetizers to share. Ozzy says, "We're not gonna start with the whole tell me about yourself, right?" And Jess would prefer to start literally any other way, and she's like cackling. Ozzy asks how Jess got into circus stuff. Jess got into it later by society standards in her early 20s. People like to think that if you didn't start something as a child, you missed out. But in reality, there was no age limit for new things, especially circus. You could choose a different life at any time. All it took was a first step. Honestly, I kind of relate to this. I wanted to be an animator my entire life since I was like a little kid. And it feels like if you don't get a job right away, you won't ever get one. And people really have that attitude, I feel like. But I'm 32 and I'm not gonna give up yet, even though AI is around creating problems. Want me to help me with my dreams? Like, comment, subscribe so I don't have to work my shitty overnight job, so I have more time to do all the things I want to do. Ozzy asked what her first class was, and it was Silks, and Jess was convinced she was gonna love it and it would be her thing. Ozzy says she bets she was amazing in the first class. Jess says, "I don't know about that. She's always been athletic. She was in track in her childhood, but her quads and hamstrings needed help when she was starting out." Ozzy thinks that she loves a good origin story. From there, Jess fell in love with Lyra. She started getting into every circus camp and class that she could, and she worked from home as a marketing specialist, and she would sneak off on like different trips to do different circus training programs. Then Logan started getting into it too, and she asked if Jess would do like duet with her because she wanted to start her own company, and Jess said yes, and the rest is history. Jess asked the same about Ozzy. She started circus stuff young, but juggling happened in like the last few years. She got really into circus stuff in her teens, and then she did it off and on in college. She got a business degree, but it really wasn't her thing. She went back to the circus and started performing. She was traveling around a bit doing random circus work until she settled down at her last company. Jess holds her hand from across the table. Ozzy says, "We all know how that went, but I'm here with you all now." And Jess says they're all so glad that she's here with them. Ozzy asks what Jess is into besides circus stuff, and Jess likes video games, eating sugary things, and knitting. She says knitting is not just for grannies. Ozzy thinks that it's cute, and then Jess asks her the same thing back. Ozzy really likes reading fantasy, also fantasy movies, and is a big fan of video games. She says that they should play together sometime, maybe. Jess says that she likes cozy games though, so Ozzy teases her and says if it was a competition, she would win. Jess says she's sure she could kick her ass at something, but not shooting and aiming games, which is sad. Borderlands is one of my favorite game franchises. Athena, fine as fuck. She could get it. Ozzy says she looks forward to it. They toast and then they talk about some things we don't get to hear about. Ozzy talks about how when she dated men, she usually worries about their political views or other misogynistic, capitalistic, white supremacist bullshit because you just really never know what will come out of their mouths, is what she says directly. Yeah, men. I don't get the appeal. Butches are right there. I mean, they aren't because I feel like most of them are taken, but still. Jess says she has a simple solution: don't date men. Ozzy says, easy for you to say as a lesbian. Unfortunately, I'm still attracted to them. All right, I'm gonna get on my soapbox really quick, okay? Just because you're attracted to men, or anyone, just because you're attracted to anyone, doesn't mean you have to date them. You have free will. You can just walk away. You are not legally obligated to date everyone you're attracted to. You don't have to date your oppressors. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, where you're like, oh, you just don't want women who are into men to date. I didn't say that, but there are plenty of straight women who choose not to date specifically because of how men are. You can choose to protect yourself if you want to, is what I'm saying. I also understand that men lie. I'm not talking about those instances where you think the man is fine and then it turns out he lied about everything. I'm not saying that, okay? Jess says, truly tragic, women are just better. Ozzy says, noted. They finish and they go half and half on the bill, which is kind of nice for a first date. Jess asks how she would feel about coming over to her place. Ozzy likes the sound of that. They get up and they leave holding hands. Ozzy feels like they are changing their relationship for the better. Chapter 15, Ozzy. They're at Jess's place. Jess says, I'm not gonna lie, I want to escalate things. Sleeping with someone on the first date isn't for me, but I respect her for going after what she wants. Ozzy is like, is that right? Jess tells her that she's been tested since her last partner and everything is in the clear. It's the same with Ozzy. She shoves Ozzy down on the couch. Ozzy likes her being bossy. They start to have some sexy time stuff. I'm just gonna give the highlights like normal. We're not gonna go through every single thing again. I actually enjoyed this book overall. I would consider buying it if it sounds like it's your thing. I'm thinking about buying the second one, to be honest with you, like, because I had a pretty good time overall. It wasn't so bad. They make out on the couch for a while. Jess gets off her very quickly. She goes to the DJ booth while Ozzy is helping her yits, you know. Jess then gets to have Ozzy go into the buffet. Good for her. Lesbians keep on winning. There are some finger added, you know. She gets there, good for her. Jess asks what Ozzy likes. She asks what kind of toys she has. They go to the bedroom. Jess asks how she feels about a vibrating strap. Ozzy loves that idea. They use lube. They do prep. No notes, honestly. Jess has her get there once before like the prep is done. I complain about sex scenes a lot on this channel, but there really wasn't anything that bad on this one. Like, not this time. I was genuinely enjoying this. There is some things about the book that I didn't love, and we'll talk about it towards the end, but yeah. Anyway, Ozzy gets there and they do strap stuff until Ozzy gets there again, and Jess also did some outside stuff during it. The author knows what's up. Jess wants her to climb on her face one more time, and Ozzy does that. The only part of this sex scene that I didn't like is that near the end there was the word milked. No thanks, I just hate that word. I don't know. Jess also gets herself there. Ozzy can't remember the last time she's gotten off so many times with a partner. They kiss some more when they're done. Jess asks if 3 times is the max, and Ozzy says it is for tonight. Jess goes to get them some water and some snacks. We love a good sapphic marathon sex session that ends with snacks and water included. Jess comes back with those things. They agree that it was amazing. Jess tells her that she really likes her. Ozzy says it back. Jess asks what she thinks about taking a pause from fake dating to try real dating. Ozzy says, I thought you would never ask. Jess says, awesome. On the bright side, we only have to tell Logan, Mila, and Avon. Ozzy says she'll have to tell Trevor, but he already knew it was gonna happen. They snuggle. They quickly go over that they're both monogamous. Ozzy says they're dating. They're not girlfriends yet, but definitely dating. They decide to watch a movie. They fall asleep in each other's arms. Aww. See, I do love love. Dear other books, stop making it seem like I don't like love. Chapter 16, Jess. Jess wakes up to a bunch of dinging noises. Ozzy is sleeping next to her. She thinks about how last night was perfect. She looks at her phone to see who's texting her, and it's Mila, and she broke up with Jake, and he won't leave. He could stay with his brother, but he's refusing to leave. He's also months behind on paying his share of the mortgage. She says she owns the damn house and she wants him out. It reminds me of my wife's friend. I won't name names. I don't think that she watches this, but whatever. She started dating her current boyfriend because they were kind of pressured into quarantining together for COVID for some reason, and he basically like squatter rights himself in like his way into being a boyfriend. Yikes, like what is up with men? I have one guy friend, he's a gay guy at work, and he respects women. He doesn't make me uncomfortable. Jess is pissed immediately, which is a whole mood. She goes to wake Ozzy up. Ozzy just shakes her head. Jess snuggles between her legs and starts licking the cookie. Hey, maybe get some consent, like they just started dating and having sex. Will be, if you count this as sex, the second time. I still don't understand how you know somebody wants something without just like asking. Is this like an autistic person problem, or am I just right? Let me know in the comments. Ozzy loves it, so I guess it's okay. She gets off, yay. I don't know how to feel about that. Jess asks if she's awake now. Ozzy says, I sure am, and she's like giggling, and good for her, I guess. She's happy, I guess I have to be happy, I don't know. Jess tells Ozzy they have a situation, shows her the phone. Ozzy says, fuck, let's go. Jess says breakfast on the way, and Ozzy nods. Jess goes back to being mad and thinks about how Jake is refusing to just make this easy for everyone. That's a mood. I hope she grabs her pink taser and pepper spray. Ozzy offers to drive. On the way, Jess texts the group and says that they're on their way. Logan, Danny, and Avon are also on the way. Danny is bringing a taser because they know what's up. Mila texts them and says he stormed out and asks if they could maybe just like move his stuff to the front lawn. She's not even kidding. Jess says yes, do you still have his location? Mila says yes, and she can keep tabs on him while they get all of the stuff out. Logan is calling for more reinforcements, and Bex is on his way. They pull up to her house in the suburbs. Logan is already there directing people. Avon is holding Mila's hand. Jess wants to slap Jake, and I'm all here for it. Let's slap him. Danny and Bex are marching boxes in and out of the house. Jess and Ozzy jump out of the car. ready to go. Logan makes a comment about seeing them both together so early in the morning. They both blush and just hold hands. Danny says something about their date being successful. Everyone laughs, including Mila. Danny knows about their fake dating from Logan, and they think the whole thing is adorable. Jess asks Mila how she's doing. Ozzy races inside to help with the boxes and stuff. Mila says it's like a weight is gone, but also she still feels a lot of pain and her eyes are all watery. The boxes aren't neat and Jess thinks that he doesn't deserve it. I agree. Logan asks what his location looks like. He's still far away, so they probably have like about an hour or two. They work on getting rid of his stuff. He doesn't have that much because it was her house before he got there. Why do a lot of men barely own anything? What's with their like odd minimalism? Does anyone know? I'm not tapped into what men are about. Logan enjoys Ozzy and Jess being sweet to each other. They finally finish and tell Mila he won't be bothering her anymore. Mila is just kind of dazed though. Danny asks what's going on in her head. She can't believe that he was like wiped away in a couple of hours from her house. She says it's good but weird and sad. She says it was a long time coming, but now she's like a little overwhelmed. Avon asks if she's going to be okay living alone for a while, and Mila doesn't know. Danny asks if they can move in for a bit. This is where I realized that Danny had they them pronouns, my B. I'm pretty sure they're the couple for the next book, and I am a little bit excited to read it. I might read it. I don't know yet. Mila says, would you? And Danny says, sure. They start making arrangements for Danny to move in. Ozzy asks if someone heard anything, and there are like car noises outside. Jake storms in saying, what the fuck? They surround Mila to protect her. She tells him he needs to get out. He's beat red from her putting his stuff on the lawn. Logan tells him to go outside and pack all of his stuff before they carry his ass out of the house. Beck says, I would be more than happy to put your stuff in your car, but you're done here. We love all these supportive friends slash co-workers. Jake is looking around in disbelief. He decides not to fight them, which is very surprising, honestly. They all load his boxes into the car. Not all of them fit, but don't worry. Danny and Ozzy are going to drop it off wherever he's staying, like the rest. Ozzy gives Jess a kiss before leaving with the rest of Jake's crap. The crowd goes wild for this. Jess says she'll text her later and they drive off. We learn that Bex just got into town, but he wanted to help. Nice of him, I suppose. Jess wants them to go back and check on Mila. Mila says that sure was something. They all go inside and pop a bottle of wine. Mila asks if it's too early to drink. Logan says not for something like this. They all cheer to saying fuck you to Jake and to having a new chapter. Mila tells them she really appreciates them. Jess ends the chapter by thinking to herself, men are the worst, and I agree. Chapter 17, Ozzy. Jess and Ozzy are hanging out. Ozzy asks how Mila is holding up. Jess says as good as you can be after forcing your ex out of your house. But Danny moved in and things are going well. It's been a couple of weeks since they kicked Jake out at this point. Ozzy asks Jess if she's excited to meet Trevor. Jess is very excited to meet Ozzy's best friend. He should be home in a bit and they can both talk shit together. She thinks about how Trevor immediately hated Sean because he's a king. Jess asks what she should start with when talking shit about Ozzy to Trevor. Ozzy thinks she's enjoying it a little too much. Ozzy thinks it's strange introducing someone you're dating to your people. It isn't if you introduce them before you start dating. Street smarts. That's what I did. Ozzy herself has become obviously very acquainted with Jess's friends, and Jess's mom lives nearby. I thought she already met the mom, but she apparently didn't. We're gonna do that later. It was written a little bit confusing, I can't lie to you. But even if they had already met, I met my wife's parents before we were even together, so it's the story of my relationship. We did everything before we were together, pretty much. Ozzy's family lives far away, though. Trevor comes home and announces himself. He brings Chinese food. Great idea. Jess realizes he was the one who went to the first show with Ozzy when they initially met. He confirms this and says, you were the sexy little hoop siren. Ozzy feels awkward and says she's gonna grab them some drinks. She tells herself to breathe. She comes back with some seltzers. Jess and Trevor are talking about the embarrassing time Ozzy hit all the cars around her when she was trying to parallel park. It was mentioned a little earlier in the chapter. I just didn't want to repeat it twice. He says it's true. Ozzy says you're really not holding back, huh? Trevor says where's the fun in that? Jess asks Trevor about him being a dancer. Jess knows a lot about it because one of her sisters is a professional dancer and she works in Europe now. She also mentions she was a runner. Trevor says that he dated a cross-country runner in high school and I had to sit through his races. Jess says I'm sure it sucked, and yeah, I tried to do indoor track. I did it for about half a year, but I do feel a little bit bad for me because I clearly just had so much chronic pain and it never got any better. Like, running, but I just didn't understand what was going on. He says that it sucked and he had to suck to make up for it. Everyone thinks it's funny. I'm not a prude. I don't know. I just hate men. I think that's part of it. But Sandry really is that it girl of the last couple thousand years. I'm the mean lesbian your parents warned you about. The hours fly by and they all have a really great time. Trevor and Jess like each other, yay. They eventually go outside to the patio with their drinks to watch the sunset. Trevor asks if the fake dating is officially done. Jess says, I would say so, but we're not labeling anything yet. He says, so adorable. I want to throw you off of the porch. Jess is leaving after a little bit because she has like an early morning private lesson or something. They hold hands as Ozzy walks her out. Jess says, I think it went well. Ozzy agrees. They do another intense makeout session outside, you know, where people can see, yay. They say goodnight to each other. Ozzy goes back in. Trevor tells her that they're cute and Ozzy agrees. Trevor says that he really likes her and that she's a much better match than that meathead Sean. Ozzy says, unfortunately, I do like men, even though I should probably stay away from them. You don't have to date them. The more you know. She says, thanks for your stamp of approval. It means a lot, like, that you like each other. He says, you don't need my approval, but you're welcome. Ozzy goes to her room and she's waiting for Jess to text her saying she got home safe. She does. Ozzy wants to type I love you, but it's too damn early. Ozzy wonders if she really does love her, and she thinks in some ways she does. She's not in love with her yet, but she's getting there. They text some cute stuff about liking being with each other. Ozzy is still worried about Jess feeling the same way. Ozzy sets her phone down and says goodnight, and she lets herself picture the best case scenario for them, and she worries that it's a little too good to be true, and she hopes her dream really can come to be reality for them as long as one of their exes doesn't fuck it up. And I wrote here, I swear to God, if there's a third act breakup, writing me, I hope you come back to this and it isn't so. I hate to tell you, it is so. It is so. Chapter 18, Jess. Ozzy comes to Jess's house and says, what's the emergency? Jess says she has a sex emergency and kisses her. I don't think that's an emergency, Jess. Ozzy says, are you fucking kidding me? And then starts laughing. Jess says she's serious. Ozzy says, don't do that again. You gave me like a heart attack. Jess feels a little bad for making her nervous. I think you should feel much worse. I'm just saying. She says, if she promises not to do it again, can they have sex? Ozzy says, fine, it's a deal. Because what else are you gonna do, I guess? Jess tries to make sure Ozzy isn't too mad teasingly. Ozzy says no, but you should probably be extra nice to me to make up for it. Ozzy asks her if she wants to have a little fun and asks if she wants to do some light bondage and noise canceling headphones. Jess would like that very much. They're both very horny. Ozzy asks if she has any scarves. They need at least 2, but she already brought the noise canceling headphones. She gently ties Jess's wrists together before putting the headphones on. Ozzy tells Jess to tell her if she needs something different or if she doesn't like something. Jess promises to communicate with her. They have a good, sexy, fun time. There's nothing much to say. You'll have to read it if you want the full thing. I don't mind these sex scenes at all, and I'm quite picky, so you know, take that as you will. There's only a couple spots where I was like, I don't know about those words, but like nothing disgusted me or took me out of it completely, except maybe the word milked in the first one. Overall, very good sex scenes compared to the normal stuff I read. Well, read for this channel. After it's over, they check in with each other. They both had a great time. They hold each other. Ozzy says, next time you have a horny emergency, just say that. I'm more than happy to show up. It just says, I get it. I won't cry wolf again. I'll just say what I want. Jess thinks that Ozzy is becoming someone that she can't really imagine her life without. Ozzy just says she was worried about the whole thing, and she says, your pussy is good, Jess, but do it again and you'll see what happens when you're bad. Ew. Jess says, got it, I won't. They snuggle closer, drift off to sleep, and Jess has a sex dream about Ozzy. Chapter 19, Ozzy. They're doing a group sexy photo shoot. Logan says, this is the best idea Ozzy's ever had. Why didn't I think of this? Ozzy says, because you're missing someone like me with a good following and who knows what they're doing. We love the confidence. Ozzy says that her patrons and followers love seeing her nude shots of her doing anything circus related. She tells them to be mindful of their bits. Not every trick is meant to be done or should be done naked. Logan asks if she says that from experience. Ozzy says yes, and it's not worth it. She says her labia and nipples did their best to recover, but they won't ever be the same. She winks and Logan cackles. Again, the winking. the fuck? They're going to put the photo shoot on Ozzy's OnlyFans, and she's hoping to donate the profits to their scholarship fund so people can train with them for free. They're in an adult-only studio, so she thinks that this is a no-brainer. They have a photographer named Micah for this. He's a good friend of Trevor's. He wants to do some individuals, then some pairings or couples, and then group photos. Logan wants to go first. She's not shy about stripping at all. Good for her. She does some trapeze shots. This is where we start getting some weird comments, though, to be honest. I'm glad everyone is confident in their body, but I don't think I could talk to people like this. It's just like a personal preference. I don't know. Logan says, my coochie is beautiful and deserves to be worshipped. Again, I love the confidence. Damn. Mila is nervous and not sure about doing this. Ozzy thinks that that's fair. Not everybody has Logan's kind of conviction. She tells her she doesn't have to do it. It's all up to her. Like, if she realizes after taking them she just wants them for herself, that's great. Wear as much or as little as you want. There are no rules except for what feels good for you. Consent can be revoked at any time. And we can just stop, and Mila says okay and bites her lip. Logan is having a great time up there. Ozzy asks why she doesn't have her own website. Her tattoos and ass would make all kinds of people drool. Logan says she doesn't know, she hasn't thought about it much, but maybe I should, but she's also really fucking busy and she doesn't have any time for anything fun. Micah asks who's next. It's Avon's turn. Avon's end up being more like artistic and poetic, whereas Logan's were sultry and sexy. Avon does some hand balancing and spin stuff. Everyone is very supportive during this whole thing, complimenting each other. It's nice that they're all like so supportive of one another. Jess goes next. Ozzy thinks that seeing her naked never gets old. Jess's shots are powerful and strong. The whole thing turns Ozzy on. Logan says, stop objectifying your girlfriend, please. Ozzy says, you don't know I'm doing that. Logan says, oh yes I do. Jess continues to do some stuff on the hoop. Ozzy wants a set of the photos to keep. Jess winks at her. I think these people all need to get their eyelids checked. Ozzy wants to have sex with her right there, but she thinks that having sex with your girlfriend in a place of work in front of everyone is not the best idea. She says, I need to look away from Jess. Ozzy notices Mila still looks worried and asks if she wants to go or if she wants Ozzy to go. Mila says she can do this. She decides to have nipple pasties and a nude thong. Love it. Good for her. Do whatever makes you comfortable. Jess hops off the hoop and starts popping grapes in her mouth. Ozzy is having a hard time controlling herself at this. I don't see how eating grapes is sexy. Maybe it's just me? I don't know. Logan says this sexual tension is fun. Ozzy turns her attention to Mila. Mila does some like shy, demure poses while doing silks. Micah, the photographer, is telling her she's doing beautiful and that this is a beautiful shot. Danny walks in and is like, sorry I'm late. Logan says, you're just in time, I think. Mila smiles shyly at Danny and her cheeks are a little red and Danny is avoiding Mila's eyes. Now it's Danny's turn. They're doing some very kinky poses. Jess yells, look at that non-binary baddie. They do some spins and splits. Jess comes over to Ozzy and holds her. Ozzy says, you were stunning up there. Jess says, thank you. I wanted to put on a little show for you. Ozzy says, I'm sorry. Are you an exhibitionist? And she says, maybe. Ozzy says, okay, we should revisit that later. You all by now know how I feel about that. It's a big no for me, but good for you, I guess, as long as I don't have to see it or smell it or hear it. Okay. Jess asks Ozzy if she thinks Danny has a crush on Mila. Ozzy says absolutely. Do you think Mila has one back? Jess is not sure Mila is queer, but who knows since she left Jake. Danny gets down. Everyone tells them how sexy they are. Danny says they always love performing for their fans. Mila is still blushing. Ozzy is up last. She does some juggling. After everyone says thank you for sharing this with us, they're now going to do group and couple shots. Ozzy and Jess go first. They're having a sexy good time. It says it's not too scandalous, but Danny says they're getting hot from watching this, so I don't think I believe them. Danny and Mila go next, and then it's Logan and Avon. They go for several hours before calling it quits. They thank Micah. Logan asks who's ready to get the fuck out of here and celebrate all of them being so sexy, being some sexy motherfuckers, is her words, I think. Everyone says yes. Chapter 20, Jess. Jess is waiting for her mom to show up at her place. When she gets there, Jess goes outside to meet her. She thanks her mom for coming. Her mom says she's surprised that she called her. Jess thinks to herself the only reason she did is because everybody was busy doing some kind of show today. So her mom was the best option other than Lyft or Uber for her eye treatment. Jess says there weren't very many options today. She thinks to herself that her mother isn't the best, but she's also not the worst. She's not really supportive of the circus stuff, which Jess thinks is better than her coming to watch and not keeping her comments to herself. Her mom asks how work's going. It's about a 20-minute drive to the appointment. This conversation doesn't feel 20 minutes long though. Jess starts to say good, busy, this performance season, you know. Her mom interrupts and asks about Genevieve. She says they broke up a while ago and she forgot she hadn't told her. Genevieve is still being annoying and messaging her. She doesn't know how to respond to her saying she's excited for Ozzy and her to perform at that event in a month or so. Her mom says, oh, you didn't think to tell me that? Jess can't tell if she's hurt or not. Jess says she's sorry, she's just been busy. And now she's seeing someone new. Her mom asks for their name. Jess says it and says they're partnering in some acts. Her mom asks what happened to her partnering with Logan. She explains about Logan being busy running the company. Her mom says that's too bad, I love Logan, tell her I love her. Jess says she will. They get to the doctor's office. Jess tells her she can wait in the lobby if she wants and that she'll be done soonish. They walk in together. Jess is called quickly. They numb her eyes and then do the treatment. 20 minutes later and she's walking out with blurry vision. She grabs some Advil from her bag and pops a few. They walk out to the car. Her mom wants to know when she can meet Ozzy. Jess thinks about how Genevieve had dinner with her mom like a couple of times, but she rarely sees her mother, so it's not a big deal if her new partners like don't meet her mom. She thinks that she's not close with her mom and she's okay with that. Jess says sure, I'll set something up. Her mom says send it to my assistant's account and she'll look at my calendar. Jess has her bring her to the studio instead of home so she can ride with someone else home later. Her mom tells her to let her know if she needs anything else. Jess says thanks, I'll see you later. She's relieved that she doesn't have to small talk with her mom anymore. Her mom peels out of the parking lot while starting to yell on the phone at the exact same time. Jess hopes she won't hit anyone. There is another car there. She can't really tell who at first. It's Bex. He says, hi, darling, and gives her a hug. He explains Logan said he could pop in and that everyone's out at that corporate event thing. She says it's good to have you here and asks if he's performing drag anywhere. He says he has a few things lined up. Jess brings up him and Avon having a moment. He says, yeah, we hooked up. I haven't seen her in a long time. Before Mila's boyfriend's takedown a few weeks ago, he hadn't seen her for quite a while, and he hasn't been in the studio yet, but he's blushing a little. Jess says don't worry about it because me and my duo partner are dating, and she tells him about Ozzy. He said he figured something like that was going on from Mila's boyfriend thing. Jess thanks him for helping them with that. She says it's a weird way to get started with us, but we're family and your backup was much appreciated. He says of course I'm happy to help. You're one of my favorite groups of people. They catch up until the gang comes in. Jess asks Logan how it went. She says good, but she's glad it's done. The ambient performances really take it out of her. Ozzy says she's gonna do a coffee run if anyone wants anything. She goes up to Jess and holds her and asks if Jess wants to come with, and Jess nods. Ozzy tells them all to text her what they want. Avon comes in and sees Bex. They have a moment. Bex introduces himself to Ozzy. Ozzy says nice to meet you officially, and she thanks him for his help with getting Jake out too. She says feel free to text Jess if you want anything. My treat. Logan tells Bex he missed the hot circus photo shoot. He says that sounds like his kind of fun and looks at Avon. Avon is just frozen in the doorway. Jess calls her name and shakes her shoulders. She does not get coherent, but she smiles sheepishly at Bex as he's like looking at her. Ozzy says okay, let me know, and drags Jess out to the parking lot. They kiss again. It's described as attacked my mouth with hers. Yikes. They say hi. Ozzy asks how her mom was and how her eyeballs are. She says her eyes are the same and that her mom is apathetic as usual. Ozzy says that's an interesting way to describe your mom, but I'll take it. Jess says she wants to meet you. Ozzy says okay, if you want to, I'm in. Jess says it would bring her an iota of joy, so we should. Ozzy says let's bring her an iota of joy then. And she says she wants to take her on a special date sometime next week if she's okay with it. Jess says hell yes, I have the time. They pull up to the local coffee spot. Chapter 21, Ozzy. Ozzy asks if Jess is ready. Jess says yes, she doesn't normally like surprises, but Ozzy makes everything a little bit better, so she'll deal with it. I don't love surprises either. I guess it depends on what it is. They kiss. Ozzy says okay, let's go before I get caught up in the way your ass looks in those shorts. Jess asks if she likes her butt. You know, just knew a couple things. Ozzy tells her to get in the car and asks how much of a surprise she wants it to be. Jess says, what do you mean? Ozzy says you can close your eyes if you want until we get there, or you can keep them open, up to you. Jess says, I'll close my eyes, I trust you. I can't close my eyes in the car or I'll throw up, but good for you. They're at the date spot. Ozzy tells her to keep her eyes closed if you want a really big surprise. Jess says if I trip and eat shit, I'm going to be pissed. I feel that. Ozzy says she'll keep that in mind. They make their way through a garden path. There is a picturesque picnic all set up. Ozzy tells her she can open her eyes. Jess does and gasps. It's really sweet. Ozzy hired a party company to do it, and she thinks about tipping them. There's a champagne bucket. It's decorated with flowers. There is a lot of food, and there's a sign that says happy date night. Jess asks what she did, and Ozzy says, well, it's just a fun little date surprise. Jess is tearing up a little bit, and Jess is like, you did all jealous for me. Ozzy says, I hired a company, but yes, I got it all taken care of. Ozzy thought she would confess that she loves her, but she's not sure that now is the right time. Jess says this is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me, and she runs over to hug her. Ozzy whispers that she likes her a lot. Jess says it back and says it kind of freaks her out how much. Ozzy asks what she means. Jess says she struggles to let herself be in a relationship and fall into something true and meaningful because of past relationships being just surface level. But with her, it's different. She's afraid it will swallow her whole sometimes, and she's crying. Ozzy wipes the tears away. Ozzy says they can navigate it together one step at a time, nice and slow. They kiss a little more, and then they pull apart. And Jess says they should enjoy the lovely picnic, and they sit together. Ozzy checks in to see how Jess is feeling about Genevieve, like Genevieve's whole event coming up. Jess says sort of weird, like, why does she have to be in my business even more now that we're not together? Like, especially since we're not dating. And she says she's been ignoring her messages, but she'll have to talk to her when they get there. But fuck, the money is good. Ozzy asks if she texts her a lot, and she sounds a little jealous. Jess just shows her the messages. Ozzy says, Jesus Christ, would you be mad if I said I was a little jealous? Jess says no, and she thinks it's kind of hot. She says she thinks a healthy amount of jealousy is fine as long as it doesn't move into control and manipulation. Ozzy says, and gets an idea, and she walks over to Jess. She says, I think I can show you you're mine and only mine. That's right, they're about to have some public fornication. It's very private, and Ozzy has rented it for 2 hours. Again, if you want to read the smut, buy this book. They have a great time. Ozzy almost says I love you, but doesn't, which I think is probably a good move, especially when I know the rest of this book. They go back to eating food, not each other. We end the chapter with Ozzy thinking about how much trouble she's in, because if you ever lost Jess, she doesn't know what the fuck she would do. Chapter 22, Jess. They're all hanging out at Mila's house, and they're all getting gathered around a laptop. There's a fancy spread of jams and fruits and desserts. They're all ready to see the photos. Logan wants to go first. Jess says you went first at the actual photo shoot. Logan asks if she's saying she's being an attention whore. Beck says, I think you're the one who said it. Logan says, hush, because you weren't even there. Beck says, too bad, because I would have been an absolute star. Ozzy asks if they're done. It's Logan's pictures up first. Avon says, I'm so not straight. And Mila says, none of us are, thank God. Relatable. I'm friends with straight people at work, and not very many of them, and that's it. Next is Jess. Logan asks Ozzy if that's the look that made her fall in love. Ozzy says something like that and has to look back at the screen after a sec instead of looking at Jess. Jess thinks they haven't talked about the love word yet, but her heart and body are unequivocally Ozzy's. But now is not the time or place to unpack all of that. Ozzy mentions they need to keep track of which photos they want to donate to the site. Logan says all of hers should be used. They should be so lucky to see her naked. I love her. Mila says she'll keep it in mind. Mila's photos are next. Danny compliments the photos. Avon says they should be in a magazine. Mila thanks everyone, and she's glad she did it, even though it was terrifying. It's Avon's turn. There is some banter. Then it's Danny's turn. Everyone gasps. They look really good. Everyone oohs and ahs. It's then Ozzy's turn. Hers are very artistic, and like Jess thinks they're very artistic and delicious. No one says anything. Ozzy asks if they're really that bad. Jess whispers it's glorious and gets up and kisses her. Logan starts cheering at them. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Bunch of teenagers. Jess says, not everyone's a voyeur like you feral woman. I want to hear that from the exhibitionist. Everyone compliments Ozzy's photos, and they thank her for letting them all do this together. Ozzy reminds them to pick which ones they want for donations and which ones they want to keep or do whatever they want with. Eventually they all decide which photos to donate. Jess whispers into Ozzy's ear and says, I know what I want to do with some of the photos. Ozzy says, what's that? And Jess is like, how about I show you instead? And Jess remembers that after the initial shoot, she showed Ozzy what the photos did to her repeatedly. All right. Page break. They're lying in bed together. Jess thinks that they've only been dating for a few months, but she's falling really hard. It feels like love is in the air, but she doesn't know if Ozzy is in the same place. Jess worries about how intertwined their lives are. Yeah, you decided to date a coworker. You knew this when you signed up for it. She's trying not to think too hard about it. Jess is biting her lip. Ozzy says, you're gonna bite it off if you keep going. Jess says, thank you for that astute observation, and playfully shoves her shoulder before getting more snuggled up. Ozzy asks what she's thinking so hard about. Jess lies and says nothing much, and then she goes like, except that if something happened to them, the company would be ruined and it would be a disaster. Ozzy says, Jesus, that's intense, and she's laughing a little. Jess says that she's an overthinker, and she also says that Ozzy can't deny that it would mess shit up. Ozzy says everything will be fine, plus she's thinking about buying a house. Jess thinks about how this is like a huge commitment. Ozzy says, well, you're here and I love the company. She wants to set down some roots here, plus it's a good investment. This makes Jess's anxiety spike. She doesn't want Ozzy to make such a big decision for her, or like because of her. Jess asks if she's not like just doing it for her. Ozzy says it's not just for you, but she's not going to pretend that she isn't one of the reasons. Ozzy looks hurt and her voice is getting like strained. Jess says, you shouldn't do that for me though. Her fight or flight is going crazy. She wants to get it into Ozzy's head that this is a bad idea. Ozzy says people buy real estate all the time, and taking your relationship status into account is a normal thing to do. Jess says she doesn't want her to like regret being here if it doesn't work out. She says, this is exactly what I was worried about. She's now pacing the room. Ozzy says, you don't think we're gonna work out? Jess yells, I don't know. Now who's putting their foot in their mouth? She is worried about Ozzy spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she thinks it might be a really bad idea. Ozzy says, you really don't know if we're gonna work out. Come on, you can do better than that. And she asks Jess to like set aside the overthinking for a second, and she sounds a bit angry. Jess says, we don't know what's gonna happen, and she can't commit to all of this right now. Ozzy says she didn't ask her to commit to anything. She says she's not asking her to move in. She just wants to be more rooted in this place, which means she can be more devoted to a relationship. She says she's a big girl who can do whatever she wants, and she's not asking anything more from Jess, and she thought she would be happy. Nothing has like changed in terms of their commitment to one another, she says, and she's getting pretty teary-eyed. Jess says, no, this changes everything. She thinks that she sounds childish when she says it. She wants more time and space to figure this out, and she is worried that she's not ready. Ozzy tells her to breathe and it's not a big deal. Jess says it's a huge deal because she wants to buy a house to settle down with her, and she says they haven't even been dating that long. Ozzy reiterates again that she is making the decision with her in mind, as well as a lot of other things, and she knows that it's more than a fling, and she starts to say she loves her, but she cuts herself off. They both look at each other, their chests are heaving. They seem like they're trying to dare each other to say it first. Jess can't do it though. Jess tells Ozzy she can't do this. Ozzy says, don't you dare say that, you know this is an overreaction. Just talk to me. Jess says, don't tell me I'm overreacting. Ozzy says, then don't freak out. Jess says, stop, I can't have this conversation. She thinks that she needs like a moment. Spoiler alert, it ends up being a lot longer than a fucking moment. I hate third act breakups. Ozzy says, when you're thinking about this rationally, you can call me. And when you admit your feelings to yourself and then to me, then we can talk. Until then, see you at rehearsal. And she then just grabs her stuff and leaves. Jess watches her go. She starts crying, and while she's sobbing, she's like, what did I just do? This wasn't how today was supposed to go. Jess's phone goes off and it's a text from Genevieve. She tells the phone to fuck off and throws it across the room. But then she goes and gets her phone to call Logan. Logan asks what's going on. Jess says she doesn't want to talk about it, but she still sounds really cryy, and she starts sobbing on the phone. Logan says her name, and then she says, if you don't want to talk about it, but you called me. What can I do for you right now? Jess says, could you come over and watch a movie with me and eat junk food? I didn't know how to explain my nuclear reaction to her about Ozzy. It was like I wanted to express my feelings in a calm and collected manner, but instead I flung words out like a sword and watched them cut up the woman I loved. Yeah, you sure did do that. It's so self-sabotaging, it makes me feel kind of sad a little bit, but also like frustrated. Logan says, sure, I will be there soon. Jess tries to think about what she was so afraid of. She thinks that she'll have to confront herself and then Ozzy sooner or later, and she thinks that she's great at messing shit up. Chapter 23, Ozzy. Jess is on the other end of the warehouse training with headphones in, and Ozzy is very obviously staring at her, but Jess is refusing to meet her eyes. Ozzy tries to get her to look, but she won't. Ozzy really doesn't understand what happened. She doesn't get how her buying a house sent her spiraling into space. I mean, you haven't been together that long, so I kind of get it. Like the way Jess does frame it as it being hundreds of thousands of dollars is true. It's a huge purchase. My wife and I wouldn't even move into the same dorm until our junior year of college because we were that worried about it. And we started dating freshman year of college. Ozzy thought that they were having an open and honest conversation and thought that her talking about buying a house would comfort her, and obviously she was wrong. She says the house wasn't even for the two of them, it's for her and Trevor. She can't understand why she lost her shit over something that wasn't even about her explicitly. It was meant to be a, I want to stay here no matter what, like no matter what happens to us, I still care about you, I still want to be here. And I just have to say that you should have said all of those exact words in a row. I don't know why people why don't they just say what they mean and mean what they say? It's so frustrating. Avon comes over and asks what is going on with them. Ozzy says she doesn't know. Mila asks if they had a fight. Ozzy explains about the house. They're excited about it and they want her to stay forever. Ozzy explains that this idea was very triggering to Jess. Ozzy also wants Jess to look at her, but she's giving no indication. Like nothing. Logan asks if they broke up. Ozzy says she doesn't know. To her it just felt like a fight and she's confident they can still work it out if they just talk when they're both calm. Bex asks how she can't know. Ozzy now has like a ton of people as an audience, by the way. She says, you will have to ask Jess because I don't know what the fuck happened, but maybe she does. Ozzy's mood has just been like slowly deteriorating since she walked in the building. She walks away from the group and puts her headphones in so she can juggle some alone. Logan says, you two need to figure this shit out, okay? Because she can't be managing their relationship while she's managing this company. Ozzy's like, she's your BFF, you talk to her. And Logan is like, seriously, Ozzy? And Ozzy says she won't even look at me, let alone speak to me. Logan is like, fine, you know what? I want to see you guys' routine for Genevieve's thing. She says, if you can't talk, fine, but you signed up for this event and the money, and she's not going to let them ruin it for themselves. So get on the damn hoop together. Ozzy immediately regrets asking Logan for help. Danny says, mother has spoken. Avon and Mila yell to Jess. She's like, why are you yelling? They explain what Logan wants. Jess says, right now. Logan says, right now. Jess asks why it has to be right now. Logan says, because I said so and I'm in charge. I pay you and I tell you what to do at your job. Is there a problem or something? Should I call a therapist to mitigate? I love her. But I wouldn't want to be my friend's boss. That's my opinion. Jess says no problem, no therapist either. Logan says avoidance isn't cute. And if you didn't want me to get involved, you shouldn't have asked. Bex comments about how the drama is kind of fun. See, I would be cringing. I can't do this kind of stuff in person. Talking behind people's backs, fine. Doing this, no. Ozzy marches over to Jess with her head held high. Jess won't look at her. Logan says, I don't know what happened, but you better figure it out. Ozzy thinks Logan is terrifying. Ozzy asks if Jess is ready to talk, and she really wants her to say yes, but no, she won't say yes. Jess says not yet, maybe we just run the piece. Ozzy rolls her eyes at this. They all get into their starting positions and then Ozzy tells Logan to run the music. Ozzy tries not to think about Jess's body pressed up against hers. Ozzy wonders how it's possible to be this close physically but to be mentally so far away, like so far away emotionally. The song ends, they dismount. Logan says that was actually really beautiful and is crying. Ozzy says thanks and then walks away to get her stuff. Jess tells her she doesn't have to leave. Ozzy says, yeah, I do. And she texts Trevor to see if he'll meet her for a drink. Chapter 24, Jess. Ozzy is putting on her own makeup. Logan is watching the two of them. Jess feels like a complete asshat, probably because she is being one. Jess hasn't talked to anyone about what happened. Even when Logan came over, she was just really vague. She knows she needs to talk to Ozzy. They had practiced for the event and Logan says that they're up to par. Ozzy told her to call her a second time when she's ready to talk, but Jess didn't do anything. The whole studio is buzzing about it. She thinks they're not broken up, but they're not together really. So which is it? I don't get neurotypical people and their relationships. To me, if you're breaking up, you have to say, I want to break up. I don't think we should be together. I want a divorce. What are the social cues of neurotypical people that I'm missing here? Like, I don't get it. Jess has been practicing what she wants to say at least 50 times, and she's hoping that she can do it without being a total trash show, whatever that means. Call time is in 30 minutes, and they'll do their opening act, and then there's going to be a short break, and then they'll alternate 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off. Logan tells them this, and she's very clearly over this iconic iconic. Same, I'm over it. I hate third act breakups. They're in dazzling leotards. This is Genevieve's thing, by the way. Genevieve asks if they're ready to dazzle the partygoers. Jess thinks that she's even more antagonizing now that the rest of her life is going up in flames. Isn't that just the way life works? I swear it always goes like this. Ozzy rolls her eyes. Logan says that they're ready, but please give them privacy to warm up. We're on the right schedule. Well, like we're right on time. We're good. Genevieve says it's great that they're going to be performing as a couple, as this is a charity about family and love. Jess thinks that she doesn't need to know that they're fighting, that they can just do their job and pretend to be in love. Or at least Ozzy might be pretending, but her love is real and painful. You absolute dumbass. She literally almost said it to you. Why are you like this? Why do you think she's not in love with you? This is so dumb. She's giving you way more chances than someone who isn't in love with you would give you. Jess thinks about how after this she won't take any more events from Genevieve, and that's what's getting her through this event. After this, she'll be out of her life and she and Ozzy can figure stuff out. Ozzy says thank you to Genevieve for thinking of them. Genevieve says right, a little uneasy. She clears her throat. She then blows Jess a kiss and then leaves the room. Logan says she's irritating. Yeah. She tells them to start warming up and that they go out in 5. She's going to find snacks. She's an icon. She's the moment. They do some jumping jacks and squats. They stretch their legs. Jess can't handle Ozzy not looking at her, but she's worried if they're going to survive this. Girl, you did this. You did. She's 36. Logan comes back with a plate of food. She says Genevieve really knows how to throw a good party with great food though. Fair enough. Jess tells her to chew her food so she doesn't choke. Jess and Ozzy take each other's hands. Ozzy squeezes it and says they've got this. They strut out to do this. Jess is feeling a lot of emotions, pouring emotions into the performance. She's trying to say sorry through her touch or something, but I think that she should say sorry with her words. They finish, the crowd loved it. They smile at each other. They hold hands and walk out. Genevieve is looking all sour even though this was her idea. We love to see when exes get their comeuppance. See my last video. Ozzy says she wants to stick her tongue out at Genevieve, but that would be childish. Jess says she would love to see the look on her face if she did it though. It feels nice to be back teasing each other, she thinks. Logan says they did amazing. Jess is up first. She starts in 15 minutes and then they'll switch. She leaves to get some food. Jess starts to try and talk to Ozzy. Ozzy asks if they can get through tonight and then talk, and Jess says okay, and then they hug. Genevieve comes out back and says, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Be gone, thought. Ozzy says, it's fine. What else are you gonna say? She says the crowd loved you. You both looked so enamored. Thanks for doing this. Jess says thanks for paying us, and that's real. Genevieve says they love supporting local queer artists, and hopefully they can all work together sometime in the future. Maybe even hang out outside of business, and she wants them to meet her new girlfriend. Ew. Jess is trying to figure out why she's doing this. Jess asks if her new girlfriend knows that she texts her almost every day. You should check in with what boundaries are okay with people before you start adding people to your fucking roster. And then she storms out of here. It was a little bit iconic. She thinks about the shock that was on Genevieve's face. She knows that she should have controlled her emotions, but she didn't care in the moment. So she thinks she's gonna block her number. Finally, you are 36. Why did it take you so long? I've changed my whole number. I don't care. Logan asks why she's stomping to her spot. She says Genevieve is pissing her off and tells her she may need to do damage control. Logan says she's on it and then asks if she's okay to perform with this much emotional turmoil. Jess says yes, I won't throw anything too tricky on the hoop. Logan says don't get hurt or I'm gonna be pissed. Jess says yes ma'am. She thinks about how she left a fuming Genevieve with an unsuspecting Ozzy, and she thinks it probably wasn't the best move. Yeah, no shit. She thinks she needs to get through the rest of this so that they can talk. Chapter 25, Ozzy. Logan tells Ozzy it's her last set and gives her a squeeze. Jess is twirling on the hoop. Ozzy is trying not to think about how much she loved her. Things weren't great, but maybe she's finally in a place to talk about them. Genevieve comes up to tell Ozzy that it was great and that she and Jess are just such an attractive couple. Ozzy says thank you, but she thinks that Genevieve is pesky and that she wants to talk to her as much as she wants to step on a Lego. I feel this in my soul. Genevieve then says Jess is a hard person to be with, so kudos to you for putting up with her. Ozzy is pissed about this and wonders what's wrong with her. She says, seriously? She's thinking like, how dare you talk to me about Jess right now? And so she's just fuming in silence and she just wants to get through her last piece. But Genevieve keeps going on, saying that she is such a weird commitment phobe, and she felt like the circus stuff always got in the way. And I guess she did need to be with someone like you who gets it, because I don't get why everyone's so obsessed. She says, I could never date a performer who is too busy for me. My girlfriend now just dotes on me and acts like I'm her whole world. Codependent much? Thank God Jess and I broke up, otherwise I would have never met her. I do think she's right about Jess being a commitment phobe based, because I've read this entire book and I'm just telling you right now, she is a commitment phobe in my opinion. However, the rest of it was ridiculous. Ozzy has had it and says, keep Jess's name out of your mouth. She's decided she doesn't care about this job anymore. She's worried she's gonna punch Genevieve in the face. Genevieve says, excuse me, like she wasn't just talking shit to the current girlfriend of her ex. Like, what are we talking about? Jess is watching them from the hoop. Ozzy says, stop talking about her like that and stop texting her. Thank you for hiring us for this event, but you've got to get the fuck out of her life. She's like, who are you to tell me that? Ozzy says, how dare you talk about Jess like you did? Did you even ever care about her? I can't imagine talking to someone like that who was once my girlfriend. I mean, we can talk about our boyfriend that way though. Double standards, whatever. Genevieve tries to pull that you cannot treat me this way. I paid you to be here. You're working for me today. Ozzy says, that doesn't mean I deserve this bullshit. Don't hire me again. Logan shows up like she was fucking summoned. There is no Batman signal in this city. It is the Logan symbol. She says the check has already been cashed and that she requested they work with someone other than Genevieve instead, since they seemed to understand their needs better. So you can leave Jess and Ozzy alone for the rest of the evening. Genevieve says, fuck you guys. Logan says, careful, I would hate to tell your boss that's how you conduct yourself at these expensive soirees. And Genevieve stomps off. And Ozzy says, what a bitch. Logan tells her they can just cut her set because she needs to be focused on the hoop. Ozzy tells her she's fine. Logan asks if she's sure. She says, absolutely, Jess is probably getting tired and that Genevieve didn't get under her skin that much. Logan lets her, but she's unsure. Ozzy gets ready to do her routine, but she's sick of people like Genevieve butting into people's lives, and she thinks that the people from her old studio were exactly the same. And Ozzy sees Genevieve watching her. She wants to flip her off. Fair enough. She's still pretty consumed by the whole Genevieve thing, but when she does some trick, she hears an audible pop in her ears and there's some pain in her shoulder. She tries to make a graceful descent to the ground, but her body is not working as it normally does. She tries to figure out what happened, but the partygoers don't really notice. She hopes her arm isn't that bad. Logan calls her name. Her shoulder is definitely not in the right place anymore. She starts to almost pass out. Jess yells to her and she hits the ground on her knees, and then darkness. Chapter 26, Jess. Jess is very stressed out as Ozzy is being wheeled away on a gurney. Logan has an I told you so face on, which is fair. Not many people at the party noticed because they were so drunk, but they still tried to be discreet. Ozzy's shoulder has definitely been dislocated. Logan says, I knew she shouldn't have gone up there and I should have stopped her. Jess has called Bex and Avon to come get the rest of the stuff from the gig while they go to the hospital. Thankfully, Genevieve had made herself scarce and wasn't around when Ozzy collapsed. The other people on her team were working very hard to help until Logan told them that they would handle it and that Ozzy would be fine once her shoulder got like put back in. Logan is starting to lose her shit. Jess tells her it's not her fault. Logan says, I know, but I should have checked her ass after the smackdown between her and Genevieve. Logan has already told Jess the details of that. Jess says it's partly her fault for having such an annoying ex. Logan brings up that it looks dislocated, but Ozzy's hypermobility makes her even more at risk for that kind of a thing. Jess brings up that this is her livelihood and it got fucked up by Genevieve. Logan says Ozzy's head hadn't been in the right place since their fight, like her and Jess's fight. She clarifies that she's not blaming Jess, she's just stating a fact. I'm blaming Jess. Jess says she knows and that she was scared and now she might not be able to perform because of her, and she starts crying. Logan says don't be ridiculous, she'll perform again. Plus she can still juggle one-handed and they'll have to put it back in and she'll have to do PT. So as someone who did PT multiple times, physical therapy doesn't fix everything. It definitely didn't help any of my pelvic problems. It made them much worse. I'm just saying, it's not a fix-all for every injury. Logan says it's not the first dislocation she's seen and it won't be the last. They wait for hours and don't hear anything, just ask if they can see her, but they say no because they're not family. She says that they're dating and they say, we don't really care unless you're married. This is a friendly reminder that gay marriage isn't just about being married, it's about the rights you get when you are married, just in case people forgot. Jess texts Trevor and asks about Ozzy's family, but he says they're too far away to do anything. She'll probably have an update for them when she wakes up, but Trevor is on his way. Logan asks if Jess and Ozzy made up yet. Jess says not necessarily. She got so overwhelmed about the idea of Ozzy staying here for her. Logan asks why. It's a normal thing to do. Jess says, I know. Logan says people decide all the time they like a place and its people and stay there. And not that I want you to break up, but both of you will survive if this doesn't last. We get Jess thinking about how Logan divorced her high school sweetheart. Jess says that it just felt like a huge commitment at the moment and now it feels fucking stupid. Logan says it's not all about you. Ozzy can make decisions about how she wants to live her life. I agree with that. Jess says that she knows, but she jumped the gun and got freaked out. Trevor is now here. He brought them gas station coffee. It was the best he could do at this hour. Logan says it's probably better than the hospital coffee. He asks how Ozzy's doing. They have to tell them they don't know because they haven't been able to see her. She passed out from pain or her body going into shock, one of those, and hopefully she'll wake up soon. Trevor says, I know you guys are at odds right now, but she really does care for you. She isn't always great at articulating her feelings and I think you aren't either. Go do the queer thing and make up already. Jess says she knows and she gets up and paces around the waiting room. While she's freaking out in her head, Trevor tells her that Ozzy's awake. Jess wants to practice what she wants to say first. She doesn't want to mess it up and she's convincing herself this is her fault. She tells Trevor he should go first. He asks if she's sure. She says she needs some air. I think she needs some hydroxyzine. Logan says don't be a coward, fight for what you want. Jess says don't do that to me. Logan says don't do it to yourself. Go in there and say how you feel. You're better than this. Don't lose your nerve. Jess is worried that Ozzy won't feel the same and says as much. Logan says, what if she does? Logan says that she's scared. Logan says, love is scary, but it's worth it. Jess pushes back and says, is it though? Logan says yes, and she knows better than anyone that love can rip you to shreds, but this kind of love is worth it. Jess starts crying. She thinks she can't go in there right now. She's too raw and vulnerable. She says maybe I should wait until she's rested. She starts backing toward the exit and Logan is not happy about it. Jess knows this is just an excuse. Logan tells her not to walk out of here and she's digging herself a bigger hole. She says she's worried about being rejected and she's a self-fulfilling prophecy if Logan's ever seen one. And leaving now might seal the fate you're so afraid of. Don't run away. Jess is a coward though and she is disappointed in herself, but she calls an Uber and wallows all the way home. She's just getting frustrating at this point. Again, I truly hate third act breakups. I think they're terrible. That's why I don't read more romance. Third act breakups are like a plague, okay? They're a fucking plague. Chapter 27, Ozzy. Trevor tells Ozzy she looks like shit. Ozzy says thank you for that, asshole. Logan comes in and says she's trying to say sorry, but Ozzy says don't act like this was your fault. I will throw this water in your face. And it's not your fault. I should have listened to you. Logan says yes, I love being right. Ozzy says she let her own pride get in the way and acted like an idiot, putting her body at risk. She wants to partially blame Genevieve, but it was her responsibility as a whole. We learned that her shoulder has been dislocated before, but thank God it's not the rotator cuff because she had surgery for that on the other arm and it was a bitch. She thinks that she's normally more careful of her body because of her hypermobility, and it just took one dumb bitch with a bone to pick to get her off of her game. Trevor says we can all collectively put some blame on Genevieve. Ozzy says too bad she won't be footing a hospital bill. And Logan says the circus will take care of that. But next time, take a break and clear your head when I suggest it because it's not a suggestion anymore. Ozzy says, yes, ma'am. Trevor tells her he didn't tell her family yet, but she might want to text them, especially since this isn't a new issue to them. Ozzy says it can honestly just wait. A nurse comes in, says she's cleared to leave. She needs to follow up with her PT and follow up with her regular doctor. Logan asks how she feels right now. Ozzy says like $1 million because of the pain meds. Trevor says that can't last forever. Did they fill you another prescription? Like, let me look at your follow-up stuff. And he snatches her paperwork. Ozzy asks if Jess didn't come. Logan says she did, but she left. Ozzy is like, she left? She's baffled. Logan says, yeah, like the spineless coward she is. Yeah, have best friends who hold you accountable. Ozzy says, oh, okay. But she's crushed and she thinks maybe they are done with one another if Jess can't bear to face her. Logan says that Jess really cares, but she's stuck in her own way and unfortunately is easily overwhelmed by feelings. I relate to that. I should be nicer to Jess. She promises Jess will talk to her at some point, but she doesn't know when that is. The guilt is heavy for her, and you know she gets in her own head. Ozzy says, if you say so, but her heart still feels very broken. Logan says her commitment phobia reared its ugly head, and so did her relationship insecurities. She will talk, I promise, don't give up. You two have just gotten started. Ozzy chokes back a sob and swipes at her face. Trevor says, let's take this party back to our house. Logan tells her to text her what the regular doctor says and not to worry about money or performing. They'll take care of her, and she gives her a side hug. That's very nice. I feel like a lot of these gig jobs do not give people any kind of compensation. I'm just saying. While walking out of the hospital, Ozzy wonders what her fate will be. She's really worried about how all of this is going to turn out. Page break. Her follow-up happened shortly after the hospital. She was put on bed rest for the next week or so. Training is put on hold for at least another month. She has to be evaluated before going back, but they are optimistic about her recovery. Ozzy can't be happy about it though because she hasn't heard anything from Jess. Everyone else from the circus has come to visit her. She doesn't know why Jess won't just come by. Ozzy isn't even angry anymore. She's just sad. She's been avoiding going to the studio just to avoid Jess. She wants Jess to make her intentions clear, that she wants to fix what she broke. Logan told her to come back when she's ready. Ozzy is in her room trying to decide if she and Jess have broken up without making it final, but her phone goes off. It's Jess. I'm gonna read you the text. It's awful. Hey, I know I'm a POS for taking so long. I need to sort some things out and go to therapy a few times. Logan says you're healing nicely, yada yada. There's some other stuff about healing. I'm sorry I haven't been there for you to help you through it. I've been thinking about you a lot and I'm ready to talk whenever you are, so just let me know when you're available. Ozzy rereads it 3 times, then says, are you fucking kidding me, and throws her phone. Trevor runs in and asks what happened, and he brought the kitchen knife. She tells him to put the knife down and read this BS. He does. He says it's not the most eloquent and it's certainly very late, but it is an effort. Better than sending gifts through her friends anyway. What are you going to do? Ozzy says she's pissed again. Like, why did she wait so long? Why did she run away? Can you believe this? Ozzy thinks if she didn't love Jess this much, she would tell her to fuck off. I think that's fair. Trevor says you have every right to be mad, but ask yourself what you want. Do you want to stay hurt and angry, or hear Jess out and maybe figure this whole thing out? Ozzy says she wants answers and ideally she wants Jess. He says, so text her back. She asked what he was gonna do with the knife, and he said, honestly, I don't know, but I felt better with it. That's a whole ass mood. Me, but with my pink taser and pepper spray. He just walks out. Ozzy texts her and says that she's ready to, when and where. Jess says tomorrow at the studio at 2, and Ozzy says great. Chapter 28, Jess. Jess is regretting them meeting at the studio and thinks she should have done it at like her house, but the studio felt more neutral. Jess knows that she is really fucked up. She knows that her past relationship trauma clouded her judgment and it caused her to run. She doesn't think Ozzy will forgive her for leaving her at the hospital. I know she's going to, but when I was reading this, I didn't want her to. Look, I love, but sometimes there are limits, all right? Whenever I've had surgery, again, multiple chronic problems, I begged to see my wife immediately after. We weren't even married yet, except for the latest surgery. That was kidney stones. It was awful. Jess wants what they have, though. Their love is special. She thinks if she blew it forever, she will have to deal with watching Ozzy move on with someone else. Jess is also starting to get worried that maybe she won't show, and she's about to text her when Ozzy comes through the door. And Jess is thirsty about how hot she is. Ozzy says hi to Jess. She says hi back and asks about the shoulder. Ozzy says it hurts like a bitch sometime, but it's not the worst she's been through. She can start physical therapy soon, and hopefully she'll be back to circus stuff. Jess says she's sorry. Ozzy says don't do that. Jess is like, do what? Ozzy's like, act like this injury is your fault. And Jess says, but Genevieve would never have been on your ass if it wasn't for me. And Ozzy says Genevieve is her own person and I should have been more careful, pretty much. And Jess says don't do that. And Ozzy's like, do what? And Jess is like, try to make me feel better about this whole situation. She's like, I need to take some responsibility. I ghosted you for weeks because I couldn't have an adult conversation. This is true. And then my weirdo ex pissed you off enough that you had a career-altering injury. Ozzy is like, Jess, and then like trails off. Jess is like, no, Ozzy, don't try to placate me. I need to say this. I'm sorry. And Ozzy's eyes are getting all teary. Jess apologizes for freaking out and not being able to handle her being here permanently, but she's terrified. She's afraid of losing her and messing stuff up, but she ended up doing that anyways. She's scared of how much she wants this. She's scared of hurting Ozzy. She says she's sorry sorry for not telling her sooner that commitment is hard for her and that she wants her to be here despite her acting like she doesn't. She's sorry about Genevieve, she's sorry about not telling her she loves her, and she doesn't want this with anyone else. Ozzy is smiling and asks if she's done and just starts crying. She says, I'm sorry for running away at the hospital. She says she knows she doesn't deserve her forgiveness, but she wants it. She wants her, and she will do whatever it takes to prove it again and again to Ozzy. Ozzy raises her brow and her eyes widen and just promises she won't run away anymore. She'll tell her what's going on in her head. That is if Ozzy will take her back. Ozzy asks if there's anything else she wants to say. Jess says, no, will you say something now? Ozzy says no and runs up and kisses her. Huzzah! Love. True love. I don't know how I feel about the last act of this book. They pull apart. Jess asks if this means she forgives her. Ozzy obviously says yes, that she was really pissed when she got the text, and she says Jess waited too long to have this conversation. Jess says that she knows. Ozzy says, but my love for you is bigger than my frustration. And then Ozzy confesses her love too. Yes, Jess, I love you. I love how creative you are and your loyalty to your friends. I love your sense of humor and the way you take pride in your work. I love when you get snarky and how your hair looks right after we have sex. I love you even when I'm pissed off at you. I love being with you and performing with you, and I just love you like I've never loved anyone else. Ozzy reached down and linked our fingertips together. My stomach was fluttering and my heart threatened to beat out of my chest as I brought her knuckles gently to my mouth and kissed one at a time. I love how weird and clumsy you are sometimes, kiss, and I love how confident and authentic you are, kiss, and how passionate you are about community and art, kiss. I love how you fight for what you believe in, kiss, and I just really kiss, love, kiss you, kiss, Ozzy, kiss. Aw, I can't stay mad at the queers. I can't. Well, I mean, I can, but this time it's less offensive to me. Ozzy tells her she's still gonna buy a house. She's gonna look for houses and stuff, but that doesn't change anything that she's asking from her. Just says she knows and she wants her to be here and wants them to be committed. Ozzy says she also wants Genevieve to leave Jess alone. Jess says, don't worry about it, I'll handle her. I can't believe she still hasn't blocked her. Like, Ozzy says, since you didn't visit me in the hospital, I feel like you owe me some extra love. And Jess says, oh yeah, what does that mean? And Ozzy says she still can't lift her arm above her shoulder and she might need help in the shower. Jess playfully shoves her and says, fine, that's the least I can do, and that she wants to be here for all the stuff in the future. Ozzy said we should save water for the environment, so you should just shower with me and you should take your clothes off so you don't ruin your clothes. Jess is like, you're just trying to get me naked and wet for your own pleasure. And Ozzy says, exactly. And Jess says, on one condition. And Ozzy says, I don't think you should be making demands. I kind of agree. Jess says she'll like it. You just have to say I love you at least 100 more times. Ozzy says, I'll even spell it with my tongue on your skin. No thanks. They say they love each other again, and Ozzy says, take me home and show me. Jess says yes, and they get in Ozzy's car. Jess thinks that she will spend the rest of her life showing her exactly how much she means to her until the only name on her tongue is hers for the rest of their lives. Is she not allowed to say her friends' names? Just checking. Epilogue Ozzy. It's 1 year later. Ozzy says, remember how this house sent you into a tailspin at the mere thought of it? And Ozzy sits on the couch with her and they snuggle. Jess says, remember you fought my ex and ended up dislocating your shoulder? Ozzy tries to do the whole first of all, but Jess just kisses her. Ozzy thinks about how much she loves this woman. Good. Ozzy says, but I'm all good because she's done with the rehab and PT. Jess says Logan would have been pissed at Genevieve forever if her shoulder hadn't healed. Ozzy says it wasn't really her fault per se, but it was a collaborative effort. Jess says that's a fair assessment, but now Ozzy is stronger and more focused than ever. They say they love each other. Ozzy nips at her nip through her top. Oh, wet clothes. Jess says they're having company over soon, but they start getting freaky before this housewarming party. Jess says everyone is gonna know that they banged on the couch. Ozzy says Trevor will be scandalized. He loves this couch. Trevor apparently just moved out a few months ago, so they could move in together. Woo. Jess says prepare to be more scandalized and pulls Ozzy's pants off. We switch to Jess halfway through this. It's mostly about sex, I can't lie to you. Jess thinks now that living together is the most natural thing in the world. Ozzy says they do have to get ready for everyone to come over. Jess says a few more minutes and they cuddle, and Ozzy agrees to a few more minutes. They get things ready, and at one point in the night when everyone's there having the party, they mouth I love you at each other, and that's the end of the book. Conclusion. I liked a lot of this book, but I despised the third act breakup. I just get so sick of it in books. It is so formulaic. It keeps being repeated. There were a few things I really didn't like, but I overall had a good time. I will say that the surprise sex was not really for me. I don't feel like consent was given at any point, and that kind of made me uncomfortable. And just because Ozzy was cool with it after the fact doesn't necessarily mean it's cool, especially since it was the only, like, the second time they would have slept together. So like I didn't like that. I also didn't like frickin' Jess masturbating to Ozzy's pictures after the first time she met her. I think that's weirdo behavior. I also didn't love reading about Jess's refusal to communicate. I understand that it might be realistic, but it gets really boring to read about when you're reading about it for multiple chapters in a row. I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I would definitely read another book from this author though. I believe in second chances. And there wasn't anything like super egregious about it, so like I can't really say that I really hated it. What did you guys think? Leave like a clown emoji in the comments or like a tent. I don't know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!